Chapter 877. 9 formations, stacked on top of each other, emitting an illusory light. The two swords defeated the two eagles in one blow. At the same time, vines, chains, flame cages, and other things floated out, trapping Bai Chi's snow in the middle. 9 formations? Bai Chi's snow was dumbfounded and stood there in a daze. Just now, she clearly didn't see Lu Ming inscribing formations. At the end, she saw Lu Ming step out. Just one step and he actually inscribed 9 formations. Isn't this too terrifying? Isn't this speed too fast? Heart mastery, this is the heart mastery realm. Have you broken through? Suddenly, as if she thought of something, Bai Chi Snow's big eyes opened even wider, staring at Lu Ming in a daze. Some time ago, I was cultivating in the spirit training hall and luckily broke through. Why? Do you still want to compete? Lu Ming smiled. No more, no more. Bai Chi Snow shook her head repeatedly. Lu Ming smiled, took a step, and those formations all disappeared. Tianyun, you're really cunning. You've obviously broken through, but still agreed to compete with me. Too cunning, humph. Bai Chi Snow gritted her teeth and stared at Lu Ming. Thinking of Lu Ming's proposal to kiss her if she lost, she gritted her teeth even more. She thought that Lu Ming deliberately wanted to take advantage of her. He had obviously broken through, but still agreed to compete with her. Too bad. Weren't you the one who suggested the competition? I never said anything about it. Lu Ming smiled. Humph, cunning guy, there's no big meal to eat. Bai Chi Snow continued to snort coldly and strode back to her room. Between her brows, there was a trace of a proud smile. Hey, you can't go back on your words. Lu Ming shouted rather speechlessly. Shaking his head, Lu Ming walked into the courtyard, pushed open the door and walked in. As soon as he entered the room, Lu Ming was stunned. A little tortoise was lying on his bed with its legs crossed. It was holding a blood ginseng that was 10 times fatter than the little tortoise and was gnawing on it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. He ate with relish. Dandan? Lu Ming revealed a look of disbelief. It was actually Dandan. Didn't that guy slip away during the battle at 9 Dragon City? Why would he appear here? After all, this was the Liangyi Mountain. Even a martial emperor could not break the formation of the Liangyi Mountain. How did Dandan get in? Lu Ming, you're back. I've missed you so much. Seeing Lu Ming, Dandan finished a huge blood ginseng in a few bites and rushed towards Lu Ming. Fortunately, Dandan transmitted his voice, so Bai Chi, who was not far away, did not hear it. Lu Ming reached out and pinched Dandan's head, lifting it in the air. Then he stepped slightly, and an inscription formation appeared to isolate the sound. At the same time, the door was closed. Lu Ming, what are you doing? Let me go. Dandan shouted and waved its 4 feet. You're as timid as a mouse. How dare you come to me? Why did you run away so quickly during the battle at 9 Dragon City? Lu Ming asked. Don't slander me. What do you mean by I'm afraid of death? I'm wise. I'm far from recovering. I can't help much if I stay there. Of course, I have to act according to the circumstances. While those masters were out, I went to rob a treasure house. Haha. Dandan knew. You went to rob a treasure house? Who did it? Martial Emperor De? Lu Ming asked in surprise. Of course not. It's just a small treasure house. There aren't many things. Dandan's eyeballs were rolling in thought. I don't believe it. Give me half of it. Lu Ming said. No, really. Let me tell you. Most of the things I got were elixirs. I used them to recover. I've recovered a lot. I can now inscribe level 6 and level 7 inscriptions and formations. I'm waiting for you. I'll give it to you. Let me go. Dandan shouted and kicked with its 2 claws. Lu Ming let go of Dandan. Dandan spat out a dozen jade talismans from its mouth and gave them to Lu Ming. It said, "These are level 6 and level 7 inscriptions and formations. Look, I've been thinking about you all the time." Lu Ming picked up a jade talisman and scanned it with his mind. There were many complicated inscriptions inside. Even Lian Song didn't know many of them. Lu Ming nodded and took them without hesitation. He looked at Dandan curiously and said, "How did you know I'm here? And how did you come in? I can sense your breath even if I'm far away." "Huh, why would I come in here? Who am I?" "I'm the head of the top 10 beasts, the world turtle. It's more than enough to enter this formation." Dandan laughed. World turtle? Lu Ming caught the keyword. Dandan didn't use this word when he bragged before. "Yes, world turtle. This time I ate a lot of elixirs and recovered a little. I finally remember what I'm called. World turtle. What do you think? Isn't this name domineering?" Haha. Dandan danced with joy, looking pleased with herself. "What's world turtle?" Lu Ming was curious. He had never heard of this name before. "You're the one who's a world turtle. Your whole family is a world turtle." Dandan was pissed. He pointed at Lu Ming and said, "I only remember the name. I'm not sure about the rest. But this formation is really powerful. If I didn't recover a little, I wouldn't be able to come in." This guy, Lu Ming was shocked by Dandan. Not for other reasons. If the news of him sneaking into Liangyi Mountain spread, it would cause a huge uproar. "Since you're here, stay here. Don't run around." After that, Lu Ming sat on the bed with his legs crossed. He took out the jade talisman Dandan gave him and looked at it. Dandan's jade talisman had a lot of level 6 and level 7 inscriptions and formations. It was an eye-opener for Lu Ming. He was so fascinated that he even forgot to devour the blood essence. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. 10 days later, the competition between the disciples of the Talisman Puppet sect finally began. It was to fight for the 3 spots to observe heaven and earth. Lu Ming opened the door and walked out. Dandan was lying on his shoulder. Tianyun, when did you have a turtle?" Bai Chi Shui looked over curiously. "Oh, I picked up a wild turtle in the valley behind the mountain. It looks quite fat. I plan to cook it into soup after a while." Lu Ming answered casually. This made Dandan so angry that he rolled his eyes and almost exploded his turtle shell. "You're the wild turtle. Your whole family are wild turtles." Dandan pointed at Lu Ming and shouted. "And it's a king-level wild turtle. Interesting. Tianyun, let me play with it for 2 days." Bai Chi Shui stared at Dandan with her eyes wide open. Dandan was so angry that his body twitched. The two of them chatted as they flew towards the competition. Chapter 878. Inscriptions could be seen shining on the jade wall. Apparently, the jade wall was covered with inscriptions. At this moment, the white jade square was already crowded with people. Countless young geniuses from the Talisman Puppet sect had gathered here. Not only young people, but many older people had also come to watch the competition. "Look, Tianyun is here. He really dares to come. The geniuses will definitely not let him off. This time, he can't use his martial arts. Let's see how strong his inscription Dao is. I can't believe he's able to become a Zongzi candidate." As soon as Lu Ming arrived, all eyes were on him. "Tianyun, I hope your inscription Dao won't disappoint me." Su Ri walked over. His gaze was cold and sinister as he glared at Lu Ming. What had happened last time was a great humiliation. "That's right, Lu Ming. I hope you won't disappoint me." Guan Rong also walked past. He looked at Lu Ming with a sullen expression, full of provocation. At the same time, the geniuses who had been beaten up by Lu Ming glared at Lu Ming as if they wanted to bite him. You're asking for a beating again, aren't you? Lu Ming glanced at the geniuses, causing them to turn pale. They snorted and walked to the side. Geniuses flew over from time to time. Lu Ming saw Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, and Meng Jia. The three of them were the main characters of today's competition and received everyone's attention. There were 13 people from the Talisman Puppet sect who were ranked in the top 100 of the list of top 1,000 talents. All of them were Zongzi candidates and would not participate in this competition. Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, and Meng Jia were ranked closest to the top 100 and were the most qualified to be in the top 3. They were also the most likely to win the Sky Observation Platform. Who do you think will get first place? It must be Ji Mai. He's ranked 107 on the list of top 1,000 talents. Although it hasn't been updated for a long time, I don't think anyone can surpass him. That's right, I think so too. Ji Mai should be number 1 without a doubt. As for Yan Tonghua and Meng Jia, their rankings are close. I wonder who's stronger. I wonder if there will be any dark horses. How many places do you think Tianyun will get? It is undeniable that Tianyun's martial Dao is strong. Among the younger generation of the Talisman Puppet sect, there is no one whose martial Dao is as strong as his. I'm afraid the senior elders have taken a fancy to his martial Dao and thus conferred him as a Zongzi candidate. As for his inscription Dao, it's impossible for him to be that strong. At most, he can only cultivate to support his martial arts. That's right, it's impossible to be strong in both aspects. There's no such freakish person. Sounds of discussion could be heard all around. At this moment, figures appeared in the sky one after another, and the entire place quieted down. The leader of the Talisman faction, Bai Shijin, the leader of the Marionette faction, Du Songjue, and a few other elders had arrived. Inscriptions appeared in the sky, and chairs appeared. The chief elders sat down in the air. At the level of the grand elders, it was easy for them to inscribe formations in the air. All right, I'll be the host for today's trial. A figure stepped forward with a thunderous voice that echoed in the surroundings. It's Supreme Meng Chong. I didn't expect Supreme Meng Chong to be the host this time. An uproar took place in the surroundings, as many people were excited. Meng Chong was one of the 5 great supremes of the Talisman Puppet sect. They did not expect Supreme Meng Chong to be the host this time. Even the leaders of the 2 factions were present. It seemed like they were treating the trial with great importance. Many people rubbed their fists, preparing to perform well. If one of the grand elders was interested in taking them as a disciple, they would be rich. The trial is split into 3 stages. The first stage is to identify the formations on the white jade wall. The second stage is to challenge the 10,000 formation pagoda. The second stage is to compete with one another. Now, let's begin the first stage. Meng Chong announced, before flying toward the 10,000-meter-long jade wall. He arrived beside it and waved his hand, causing a landscape painting to appear on the wall. For us inscription masters, eyesight is extremely important. If we were to enter a dangerous place filled with formations, we would need to be able to identify where the formations are and where they are not. Take this landscape painting for example. There are many formations on it. What you need to do is to find the formations on the painting. Once you find a formation, you will be awarded a point. Those who have less than 10 points will be disqualified. Those who have more than 10 points will advance to the next round. Meng Chong reached out his finger and pointed at a corner of the painting. Following a loud roar, a ferocious tiger flew out from the painting. This meant that there was a formation on the painting. Now, do you understand? Meng Chong scanned the crowd and yelled. Yes. The crowd responded. Most importantly, you must be cautious when searching for the formations. Once you find the wrong one, you will be eliminated. Therefore, it's best not to act recklessly if you aren't confident. Alright, in a moment, many paintings will appear on the white jade wall. The difficulty is the same, but the paintings are different. You can choose any one of them and identify them. Meng Chong announced. Following this, the two old men appeared at the two ends of the jade wall. With a wave of their hands, inscriptions entered the white jade wall. Immediately, the white jade wall that was 10,000 meters long began to shine, and images began to appear one after another. Every 1 meter, there would be a picture. On the entire white jade wall, there were a total of 5,000 pictures. These pictures were all different from each other. Some were mountains, some were rivers, some were demonic beasts, and some were scenes of great battles. Level 6 inscription masters, those below 30 years old, can go up the stage. Meng Chong instructed. Swish. Swish. Instantly, numerous figures flew up and landed on the white jade wall. They randomly chose a painting. Let's go up too, Bai Qi Shui said. Lu Ming nodded. Together with Bai Qi Shui, they flew up and landed on the white jade wall. Each of them chose a painting. Not long after, over 3,000 of the 5,000 paintings were chosen. In other words, there were over 3,000 level 6 inscription masters below 30 years old. This number was considered not bad. Of course, most of them were ordinary and couldn't be considered as geniuses. Many people landed on the white jade wall and quietly observed the paintings to identify the arrays. The spectators in the surroundings also quieted down so as not to disturb the contestants. The painting that Lu Ming chose was a landscape painting. A swordsman with a long sword on his back was walking on a small mountain path. Lu Ming's gaze swept across the painting. Blue spirit fire spread out from his finger. He tapped on a small tree branch. Instantly, a silver battle sword flew out and then disappeared. At the top right corner of the painting, a number appeared, 1. It represented 1 point. Under the white jade wall, the others also waved their hands and tapped on the wall. Various lights flashed on the wall. There were weapons, demonic beasts, flames, lightning, and so on. The scene was gorgeous and dazzling. Looking from afar, it was very spectacular. In the beginning, everyone's speed of finding the arrays was very fast. However, after finding the 5 formations, many people slowed down. Chapter 879. Many people began to frown and ponder as they stared at the picture. Buzz. Suddenly, someone pointed his finger and the whole picture shone brightly. Then, the picture flashed and disappeared from the wall. Sigh. That person sighed. He had pointed wrongly and the picture disappeared. He was the first person to be eliminated. Seeing that someone had pointed wrongly and was eliminated, the others became more careful and didn't dare to make a move. However, there was a time limit to the competition. It was only half an hour. If one didn't have 10 points after half an hour, they would be eliminated. Some people were pondering, but some people were still very fast. They didn't seem to need to think as they pointed their fingers and found the array formations one by one. These people were all at the level of geniuses. Geniuses are geniuses. Their eyesight is extraordinary. They can identify an array formation just by pointing at it casually. That's amazing. Of course, an inscription master's eyesight is very important. If your eyesight isn't good enough, you won't be able to become a genius. Look, Jimai, Yan Tonghua, and Meng Jia are the fastest. They almost didn't need to think and have already found 20 array formations. That's amazing. Look, the other geniuses have also found more than 10 array formations. The first round of the test isn't difficult for them at all. Look, Tianyun is so fast. He actually found more than 10 array formations. Is his inscription Dao also so amazing? Some people were discussing and finally looked at Lu Ming with some surprise. That's normal. Tianyun's martial Dao is so strong that it shows that he's talented and intelligent. Even if he cultivates the inscription Dao, it won't be too bad. It's normal for him to pass the first round. That's right. Some of the older generation people said and the others nodded. During this time, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the other elders were watching with interest. However, their gazes fell more on Lu Ming. They were very clear that Lu Ming's first 5 levels were perfect. However, the inscription Dao couldn't rely on spiritual fire alone. Eyesight, the use of spiritual fire, the number of inscriptions and array formations that one had grasped, and the strength of one's understanding were all very important. If he only had a strong spiritual fire and was weak in other aspects, he would be useless. It was like a person who was very strong but didn't know any martial skills and had no combat experience. That person's strength couldn't be used to its original effect. This competition was also a test for Lu Ming. Otherwise, why would all of them appear at the same time in a competition between juniors? Lu Ming's expression was calm. His fingers continued to tap at a steady speed. It did not seem very fast and was slower than Ji Mai and the rest. Very soon, Lu Ming also found 20 array formations. However, his speed was still the same, neither fast nor slow. On the field, there were constantly people who made mistakes and were eliminated. Towards the end, many people no longer dared to act rashly. Their eyes were fixated on the painting, and their eyes were bloodshot. As for those who found more than 10 formations, they didn't dare to make a move if they weren't completely confident. Once the number exceeded 10, they would be able to pass and enter the next round. If they were to make another move and make a mistake, they would really vomit blood. Gradually, many people stopped and looked at each other. At this time, Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, and Meng Jia had found more than 50 array formations. Their speed had begun to slow down. Sometimes, they would need to ponder for a while before they would point. As for Guan Rong and the other High God Realm geniuses, they had found more than 40 array formations. Their speed was also much slower. Every time they found an array formation, they would need to ponder for a while. Especially the rising sun, he had found 43 array formations. His brows were tightly furrowed, and his eyes were bloodshot. He stared at the picture on the white jade wall, but he couldn't find the 44th array formation even after a long time. At this moment, Lu Ming's speed was still neither fast nor slow. There was no change in his speed compared to before. He kept pointing his fingers and the number of arrays that he found was constantly increasing. 30, 40, 50, very soon, the number of arrays that Lu Ming found exceeded 50. However, the speed did not decrease. Instead, it continued to increase. At this time, many people's gazes were attracted to Lu Ming. Look, Tianyun has found more than 50 array formations, and it's still increasing. What's going on? His speed hasn't slowed down. He's so fast, he's about to catch up with Ji Mai and the rest. How can this be? The surrounding discussions affected even more people. Countless eyes were looking at Lu Ming. At first, they were puzzled, but gradually, they were shocked. When Ji Mai's array formation reached 60, Lu Ming's array formation also reached 60. But soon, Lu Ming's array formation surpassed 60, becoming the first. This was shocking. Everyone did not expect Lu Ming to be able to find so many arrays. More importantly, the speed of his finger pointing was still constant, as if he didn't need to think. At this moment, even the participating geniuses under the white jade wall were looking at Lu Ming. The rising sun's eyes were bloodshot. After pondering for a long time, he still couldn't find 44 array formations. Hearing the commotion beside him, he also looked at Lu Ming. With one look, his eyes widened, revealing a look of disbelief. He screamed, "How is this possible? How can he find so many array formations? Impossible." He couldn't believe it, and didn't dare to believe it. Gradually, even Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, and Meng Jia stopped their search and looked at Lu Ming, their eyes filled with shock. Lu Ming was still unhurried. His finger pointed at the array formation at a constant speed, and one array formation after another was found. This Tianyun, don't tell me he can find all the array formations? This is too terrifying. Look at his speed, he didn't even slow down. I know, from the beginning, he maintained a steady speed. This way, he would have enough time to think and identify the array formations. Jimai and the others were too fast in the beginning, so they had to slow down later to think. I think Tianyun will stop soon, he can't be that much faster than Jimai. Someone voiced out his opinion, causing a group of people to nod in agreement. In the sky, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others had faint smiles on their faces. They were calm, and no one knew what they were thinking. However, as the number of array formations found by Lu Ming increased, his speed didn't slow down at all. The number of array formations he found continued to increase. Soon, there were more than 70 array formations, and it was increasing at a constant speed. 71, 72, those who thought Lu Ming would stop soon were dumbfounded, and their faces flushed red. All eyes were on Lu Ming, staring at him, wanting to see how many array formations Lu Ming could find. When Lu Ming pointed at the 76th array formation, he suddenly stopped and looked around. Huff! Huff! Chapter 880. You see, I was right. He maintained a moderate speed at the beginning so that he had time to think. But he still has a limit. Now that he has reached his limit, I bet that he has reached his limit. It's impossible for him to find the next formation. The person who spoke earlier immediately began to speak again, winning the approval of the crowd. That's right, 76 formations should be his limit, but it's still terrifying. Jimai and the others probably won't be able to surpass this number. I didn't expect Tianyun's eyesight to be so good. Many people sighed and discussed. Lu Ming looked around in surprise. The reason he stopped wasn't because he couldn't find it, but because he suddenly felt that there were eyes looking at him from all directions. He was surprised, so he stopped. At this moment, he surveyed his surroundings. Seeing that there was nothing else, he shifted his gaze to the drawing again. He stretched out his finger and tapped it. 3 battle swords slashed out and disappeared in the air. Another formation was found. Then, Lu Ming began to point at a uniform speed. 78, 79, 80, in a few breaths, Lu Ming had found more than 80 formations, and it was still rising. Everyone was dumbfounded. The person who spoke up earlier almost bit his tongue, his face flushed red. He had just said that Lu Ming had reached his limit and couldn't find the next formation, but he was immediately slapped in the face. He felt his face burning. How many can he find? I don't know. Tianyun's speed is constant. It's impossible to guess. It said that there are a total of 99 formations in a painting. He can't find all of them, right? That's impossible. In history, there are very few people who can find all the formations. Even those Supremes didn't have such attainments when they were young. The discussion continued without stopping. Jimai, Meng Jia, and the rest all stopped and stared unblinkingly at Lu Ming. At this moment, they already knew that they were bound to lose. There was no way they could beat Lu Ming. What they were more curious about was how many Lu Ming could find. Damn it, how did this happen? Rising Sun's eyes were red as he let out a low growl. He had been tortured by Lu Ming the last time and had always harbored a grudge in his heart. However, he couldn't defeat Lu Ming. He had always wanted to ruthlessly humiliate Lu Ming in this competition on the path of inscription. But now? Lu Ming's array formation was far superior to his. How could he humiliate him? Interesting. In the air, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others revealed interested expressions. Lu Ming was completely focused. His finger continued to point out without any intention of stopping. He had obtained Liao Zong's inheritance. How many inscriptions and formations did he know? In addition, the inscriptions and formations that Dandan had given him were even more numerous and complicated. There was a wide variety of things that he needed. The formations on these drawings were only used to test the younger generation. How could they stump him? The number of formations he found continued to increase. Soon, it exceeded 90, but he still didn't stop. Soon, 96, 97, 98. In the end, Lu Ming pointed out with his finger. The sound of a sword whistling resounded throughout the square. 99. Lu Ming found 99 formations. At this moment, Lu Ming finally stopped. This was because he discovered that there were no more formations on the drawings. At this moment, the entire square was silent. Everyone stared blankly at Lu Ming with their eyes wide open. They were speechless. This was too shocking. Lu Ming actually found all the formations. This exceeded everyone's expectations. Finding all the formations was something that had only happened a few times in the history of the Talisman Puppet sect. Could it be that Lu Ming's attainments in inscription were also so terrifying that they were even above his martial Dao? How was this possible? How could there be such an abnormal person in the world? Being good at identifying formations doesn't mean that his inscription skills are good. Identifying formations is a test of one's knowledge and eyesight. Perhaps this Tian Yun has seen many inscriptions and formations. That's why he's so good at identifying formations. That's right. It's not like there weren't such people in history. Their cultivation and usage of spirit fire were very poor, but because they read a lot of books, their eyesight was very good, and they were also very good at identifying formations. Perhaps Lu Ming is such a person. Yes, yes, yes. It must be so. Many people agreed. It seemed that this was the only way their hearts would be balanced. Impossible, this is impossible. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly spread throughout the square. Everyone's gazes looked at the person who shouted. It was the rising sun. The person who shouted was the rising sun. The rising sun's eyes were red. He stared at Lu Ming and shouted, "Tian Yun, it's impossible for you to identify all the formations. You cheated. You must have cheated." Lu Ming sneered. He looked at the rising sun and said, "Which eye of yours saw me cheating? Also, there are so many people here. Who saw me cheating? Perhaps you were lucky and chose a very simple picture. There are a total of 5,000 pictures here. It's normal for you to choose a simple one." The rising sun gritted his teeth and shouted. At this moment, he was completely filled with jealousy. He completely forgot that Meng Chong had said that the difficulty of these 5,000 pictures was the same. He said this because he suspected Meng Chong, a supreme being. Nonsense. As expected, Meng Chong's face darkened. He looked at the rising sun and snorted coldly. The rising sun shuddered. However, he still gritted his teeth and looked at Lu Ming. He didn't believe that Lu Ming could really find all the formations. He still believed that Lu Ming was lucky and chose a simple picture. Some people in the crowd also showed a thoughtful expression. Some people also had the same thought as the rising sun. After all, there were a total of 5,000 pictures on the white jade wall. Each picture was different. It was too difficult to ensure that the difficulty of all 5,000 pictures was the same. Perhaps, some of the pictures were relatively simple. Many people had this thought in mind and looked at Lu Ming with less astonishment. Lu Ming's face was calm. He looked at the rising sun and said, "So, the difficulty of your picture is very high? At least it's harder than yours." The rising sun said coldly. Lu Ming smiled and strode toward the rising sun. What do you want?" The rising sun's body trembled and he couldn't help but take a step back. The last time he was beaten up by Lu Ming, he was still traumatized. He was afraid that Lu Ming would be angry and beat him up again. What a waste. Lu Ming curled his lips. The rising sun's face was ashen. "You found 43 array formations? This is your result? You can be called a god-level genius?" Lu Ming mocked. "The difficulty is different. What do you have to be proud of?" The rising sun gritted his teeth and said, "Is that so? Difficulty? Haha." After saying that, Lu Ming suddenly strode forward. He walked to the rising sun's picture and waved his hand. Chapter 881. At this moment, Lu Ming pointed at least 30 times. Beasts roared, giant wolves, tigers, eagles, and other demonic beasts flew out and howled at the sky. In the upper left corner, the number representing the number of arrays began to soar. At first, it was 43. In an instant, it soared to 75. In just a breath, the number soared to 75. But it wasn't over yet. Lu Ming's fingers danced, and the sky was filled with finger shadows, constantly pointing at the arrays at a terrifying speed. The number continued to soar. In just 5 breaths, the number soared to 99. All the arrays were found, all the arrays were pointed out by Lu Ming in just 5 breaths. In the audience, countless people's eyes were popping out, and their mouths were as big as half of their faces. They all had the same expression, staring blankly at Lu Ming. Silence. The audience was silent, and not the slightest sound was made. This was too terrifying, finding all the arrays in just 5 breaths. This had never happened before. This guy. Bai Qi's beautiful eyes were full of splendor, looking at Lu Ming. Ji Mai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and the others were also shocked to the extreme. Is your drawing very difficult? Lu Ming's gaze turned back to the rising sun, and said indifferently. This sentence was like a slap on the rising sun's face, making his face flush red, as if blood was about to drip out. His eyes were bloodshot, and his body trembled violently, still in shock. Just now, he kept saying that Lu Ming's drawing was easy, and that it was just good luck. But now? He had racked his brains for a long time and only managed to find 43 of the drawings that he had chosen. He had also said earlier that his drawings were definitely more difficult than Lu Ming's. What was incomparably ironic was that the drawing that he couldn't find, the one that was harder than Lu Ming's, was found by Lu Ming with a wave of his hand, in just 5 breaths. Was there anything more ironic than this? Compared to Lu Ming, he was practically blind, a piece of trash. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. Tianyun, don't be complacent. Identifying formations is just a test of your eyesight. You've read a lot of inscription books and know a lot. But in the way of inscription, it's not only useful to know a lot, it also needs to be used. If you can't use it, you're just a nerd. Rising Sun growled. He didn't believe that Lu Ming's way of inscription was so powerful. Like some people, he thought that Lu Ming had just seen more inscription formations. Really? Lu Ming smiled faintly and turned to leave. He couldn't be bothered with the rising sun, not bad. In the sky, Bai Shijin stroked his beard and smiled. Bai Shijin, don't be happy too early. He has inherited the master's inscription formation. Naturally, it is not a small matter. It is natural that he can identify all the formations in the picture. The main thing is to look at the back. Du Songjue said. That's true. Bai Shijin nodded. They were talking through voice transmission. Naturally, others couldn't hear them. Well, half an hour is not up yet. If you want to continue searching, quickly continue. At this time, Meng Chong announced. Ji Mai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and the others cheered up and continued to search. Soon, half an hour was up. Everyone's results were out. A total of more than 3,000 people participated, and more than half were eliminated directly. Only about 1,500 people passed the first round. There was no doubt that Lu Ming came in first place. In second place was Ji Mai, who found 67 array formations. The third place was somewhat unexpected. It was a young man called Hu Ming, who had found the 65th formation. Yan Tenghua and Meng Jia tied for fourth place, finding 62 formations. Some of the other god-level prodigies found less than 60 and more than 40 formations. Bai Qi Snow's result was unexpectedly good. She found 45 formations, 2 more than the rising sun. The first round of the competition was officially over. Now, the second round, the 10,000 formation pagoda. Meng Chang's voice resounded throughout the square. Everyone's gaze turned to the east side of the square. There was a pagoda several thousand meters tall, towering into the clouds and occupying a vast area. That was the 10,000 formation pagoda. Meng Chong walked on air and arrived near the pagoda. I believe most of you know that the pagoda is divided into 36 floors. There are many formations inside, and the power varies according to the difficulty. The formations at the bottom are relatively simple. The higher you go, the more difficult it is. Only by deciphering those formations can you reach the next floor. The second round of the competition will be held in the 10,000 formation pagoda. The difficulty will be intermediate. Only those who pass 12 floors can proceed to the next round. Meng Chong announced. What? Intermediate difficulty? You need to pass 12 floors to pass? That's a high requirement. It's over. I just passed the 10,000 formation pagoda not long ago, and I can only pass the 9th floor. I can only pass the 10th floor. It's over, I'm probably going to be eliminated. As soon as Meng Chong finished speaking, the crowd lamented. Lu Ming was curious. He had seen the 10,000 formation pagoda on the map that Bai Chi Shui had given him. It was a place for disciples of the talisman puppet sect to cultivate. Lu Ming had never been here before. Some lamented, while others remained calm. It was obvious that they knew what was going on. This was because most of them had attempted the 10,000 formation pagoda, and they had a rough idea of how many floors they could pass. Alright, a total of 1,516 people have passed the first round. 500 people will enter each round. Now, let's begin. Meng Chong announced. Instantly, many figures dashed toward the 10,000 formation pagoda, disappearing into a glowing door at the bottom of the pagoda. Ji Mai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming. The four of them went in at the same time. There's going to be a good show to watch. This Hu Ming can be said to be a dark horse. I wonder how far the four of them can go. Exclamations could be heard from the crowd. Lu Ming watched with interest. How does the 10,000 formation pagoda judge the results? How does it know how many floors a person has passed? At this moment, Bai Chi Shui had already walked to Lu Ming's side. Lu Ming asked Bai Chi Shui. Do you see that? There is a huge jade tablet at the side of the 10,000 formation pagoda. Once someone enters, their name will be displayed, and the number of floors they have passed will be displayed behind their name. Also, the 10,000 formation pagoda is absolutely fair. Everyone who enters will face the same array. Bai Chi Shui explained. Lu Ming looked to the side. Indeed, there was a jade tablet with names on it. There were a total of 500 names. At this moment, the word 1 was displayed behind each of the 500 names. Obviously, everyone was on the first floor. But soon, the word 2 appeared behind Ji Mai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming's name. The change happened at almost the same time. This meant that the four of them had entered the second floor at the same time. But not long after, the word 3 appeared behind their names. Chapter 882. So fast. Ji Mai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming are so fast. They actually reached the third floor so quickly. The four of them are already stronger than the others. Who is this Hu Ming? I've never heard of him before. How is he so strong? I heard that he's a disciple secretly trained by a grand elder. Everyone's eyes were glued to the jade tablet, observing the changes in the names on the tablet. At this moment, Ji Mai and the other three's names were shining brightly at the top. As time passed, the number of floors that the group passed continued to increase. Soon, Ji Mai and the other three had reached the 10th floor. At this moment, people had already started to be eliminated. The worst were those who reached the 5th floor, while some were at the 6th and 7th floor. From the 5th floor onwards, people were eliminated on every floor. The myriad formation pagoda flickered as the talisman puppet sect's disciples were sent out one by one. Those who were sent out sighed in sorrow. Soon, Ji Mai and the other three had reached the 12th floor. From the 13th floor onwards, their speed slowed down. Because from the 13th floor onwards, the difficulty would suddenly increase by a large margin. 2 hours later, out of the 500 people who entered, more than 430 people were eliminated. The elimination rate was terrifyingly high. Only 60 or so people passed the 12th floor. After passing the 12th floor, people were constantly sent out. The number of people left in the Myriad Formation Pagoda decreased. At this moment, Jimai had already reached the 23rd floor. Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming had also reached the 22nd floor. Below them, there were people from the 20th and 19th floors. What floor do you think Jimai will reach? I estimate that he'll reach the 26th or 27th floor. The Myriad Formation Pagoda has a total of 36 floors. Every 12th floor, the difficulty will increase by a large margin. From the 25th floor onwards, the difficulty will increase by a large margin. That's right. I also estimate that Jimai will reach the 27th floor at most. Yan Tenghua and the other two will be even worse. Yes, that's about it. Even among the 13 Zongzi candidates, only a few of them can pass the 30th floor in the intermediate difficulty. Many people were discussing. As time passed, more and more people were sent out. In the end, only Jimai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming remained. At this point, Jimai was already on the 25th floor, while the other three were on the 24th floor. After reaching the 25th floor, Jimai's speed was like a tortoise's crawl. He had been stuck at the 25th floor for a long time, unable to reach the 26th floor. Not long after, Yan Tenghua and the other two also reached the 25th floor. An hour later, the number behind Jimai's name changed from 25 to 26. Jimai had reached the 26th level. This time, after 2 hours, Yan Tenghua and the other two had also reached the 26th floor. This time, the wait was even longer. After 3 hours, Jimai finally reached the 27th floor. Fortunately, they were all cultivators. Not to mention waiting for a few hours, even if they had to wait for a few months, it wouldn't matter. This time, it didn't take long for Jimai to appear on the 27th floor of the pagoda. Coincidentally, less than 2 minutes after Jimai came out, a bright light flashed on the 20th floor, and Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming were teleported out one after another. The three of them could only reach the 26th floor. Alright, now that the first batch is out, let's continue with the next batch. Meng Chong announced. Whoosh. 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 One figure after another rushed in. Lu Ming wasn't in a hurry, watching with interest. After the second batch of people entered, the names on the jade tablet all changed to the second batch's names. Time flew by, and soon, night fell. Inscriptions shone around the white jade plaza, forming pillars of light that illuminated the white jade plaza as if it was daytime. Soon, everyone was teleported out of the room. In the second batch, there wasn't anyone particularly outstanding. The highest was only on the 25th floor. Rising Sun was also in the second batch, and he was teleported out after reaching the 24th floor. Now, the third batch, the rest of you can all enter. Meng Chong announced. The last batch had 516 people. Lu Ming, Bai Qi, and Snow followed the crowd and rushed into the pagoda. Countless gazes were fixed on the jade tablet. Tianyun has entered, I wonder how many floors he can reach. Tianyun is very good at identifying arrays, and the pagoda has something to do with identifying arrays. I reckon his results won't be bad, and he should be able to reach the 20th floor and beyond. Beyond the 20th floor? You think so highly of him? That's right, he's really good at identifying arrays. I reckon he can identify the weaknesses of many arrays. As long as his inscription Dao isn't too bad, his results in the pagoda won't be too bad. That makes sense, but the pagoda still depends on one's strength at the end. The 24th floor is his limit, and it's almost impossible for him to reach the 25th floor. Many people expressed their opinions. With a flash of light, the surrounding environment changed, and Lu Ming found himself in a valley. As soon as he appeared, arrays appeared around the valley. The arrays condensed into a dozen battle swords that slashed at Lu Ming. They're all level 6 arrays. Lu Ming took a glance at it and understood what was going on. As he took a step forward, inscriptions spread out along the ground and entered those matrices. Those matrices collapsed and disappeared. His surroundings changed once more. This time, he was in a forest. Lu Ming guessed that he had already reached the second floor. Arrays appeared in the forest as well. This time round, Lu Ming was even faster. With a single step, inscriptions appeared and destroyed the weaknesses of the arrays, causing them to collapse. The people outside were right about one thing. Lu Ming's eyesight was extremely sharp. With a single glance, he could identify the weaknesses of the arrays and destroy them easily. Lu Ming was incomparably fast as he charged through level after level. The environment of each level was different, and the arrays were different as well. However, it was not difficult for Lu Ming at all. His speed was unstoppable. So fast. Tianyun is so fast. He's already at the 10th floor. Outside, someone exclaimed. In the third batch, Lu Ming's speed was far in the lead. His eye of discernment is indeed extraordinary. Below the 12th level, the level of the formations isn't too high, and they're relatively simple. It's not difficult for him to break them. However, after the 13th level, his speed will definitely slow down. That's right. After level 13, it's not enough to rely on eyesight alone. Look, he has passed level 12. Someone exclaimed. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the Jade Monument, staring at the first place, Tianyun's name. This name was displayed according to the name recorded on the identity token. Lu Ming's identity token in the Talisman Puppet sect was recorded as Tianyun. Soon, the crowd fell silent. Chapter 883. On the Jade Tablet, the number behind Tianyun's name kept jumping, as if it couldn't stop Lu Ming at all. When Lu Ming reached the 20th floor, the fastest Sky Pride behind him had only reached the 12th floor. The difference was too great. The people around the square all shut up. Those who said that Lu Ming only relied on his eyesight also shut up. How could he break the array so quickly just by relying on his eyesight? They didn't believe it themselves. Damn it! Damn it! In the crowd, the rising sun roared. The other Sky Prides who had been beaten up by Lu Ming also had ugly expressions. The number of levels that Lu Ming cleared was still increasing rapidly. Soon, Lu Ming successfully broke through the 24th floor and reached the 25th floor. At this floor, Lu Ming's speed finally slowed down a little. This made many people let out a long sigh of relief. If Lu Ming's speed was still as crazy as before, they would really doubt whether Lu Ming was still human. It was normal for him to slow down. Even if he slowed down by a little, they would feel much better. In the 10,000 formation pagoda, Lu Ming stood in a desert. The wind whistled, blowing the desert and filling the air with sand and dust. Every grain of sand shone brightly, as if each grain of sand was set up with an array. The difficulty of breaking this array was quite high. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as endless sand appeared in his eyes. Swoosh! Swoosh! His fingers moved, and thousands of illusions appeared in the air. Countless inscriptions were born from his fingertips, rushing in all directions and disappearing into the sand. Just now, Jimai took a full hour to break through the 25th floor. But 10 minutes later, the wind stopped and the desert disappeared, and Lu Ming appeared on the 26th floor. Amazing! Jimai exclaimed, his eyes filled with amazement. The other Sky Prides who had reached the 25th floor, such as Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming, were also shocked. They had all reached the 25th floor, so they knew how difficult it was. But Lu Ming only took 10 minutes to break through. It was terrifying. I wonder how many floors Tianyun can reach? Someone asked. No one said anything, even those who liked to talk before didn't say anything. Most importantly, none of their previous comments and guesses about Lu Ming were accurate. Their faces turned red and they were too ashamed to show their faces. How would they dare to express their opinions easily? They might be slapped in the face by Lu Ming again. They had better watch quietly. 26, 27, very soon, the number of levels that Lu Ming cleared surpassed that of Ji Mai, who was in the first place. Moreover, he used a much shorter time than Ji Mai. But it didn't stop. 2 hours later, Lu Ming passed the 33rd floor and entered the 34th floor. It's the last 3 floors. It's said that the last 3 floors are very difficult. Even the other 13 Zongzi candidates couldn't pass them. The strongest one stopped at the 35th floor. That's right. Although it's an intermediate level, the last 3 floors are still very difficult. I think Tianyun will stop at the 35th floor at most. Everyone was discussing and some couldn't help but express their opinions. At this time, the last batch of people had come out. Lu Ming was the only one in the 10,000 formation pagoda. Among them, Bai Chi Shui successfully reached the 25th floor and achieved a good result. Bai Chi Shui's talent was amazing. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been accepted as a disciple by a supremacy like Bai Shijin. Everyone waited quietly. In the blink of an eye, an hour had passed. It's moving. Tianyun passed it. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. The number behind Lu Ming's name changed to 35. 35 floors, this was already the strongest record among the young geniuses of this generation. In the 10,000 formation pagoda, light shone and endless inscriptions flickered. A large formation emerged, forming a terrifying saber light that slashed at Lu Ming. Each of these saber light could easily kill an existence at the peak of the 9th level spiritual sea realm. And here, the saber light shone, and there were hundreds of them. Of course, if one was slashed by the saber light here, they wouldn't really die. They would just fail and be teleported out. Lu Ming took a few steps and his fingers flew. Lines of inscriptions appeared and formed a large formation. Shields appeared and blocked Lu Ming from all directions. Those saber lights were all blocked by the shields. Then, Lu Ming began to step forward and condense the formation. He looked for the weaknesses of those large formations and began to crack them. However, on this floor, the large formation seemed to be endless. After one was cracked, another one immediately appeared. Lu Ming continued to inscribe inscriptions and crack them at a very fast speed. Time passed slowly. After 2 hours, no new formation appeared. Lu Ming successfully passed the 35th floor and appeared on the 36th floor. At this moment, the outside world was in an uproar. Lu Ming actually passed the 35th floor and entered the 36th floor, breaking the record of this generation. Of course, the other 13 Zongzi candidates hadn't come to the 10,000 formation pagoda for several years. The records they left were all from several years ago. Otherwise, with the strength of the 13 Zongzi candidates, who were ranked in the top 100 of the list of top 1,000 talents, they would naturally be able to pass the intermediate level of the 10,000 formation pagoda. After another 3 hours, Tianyun's name on the jade tablet shone brightly and emitted a golden light. This meant that Lu Ming had passed the level. There was a burst of cheers and shouts of disbelief. Lu Ming had passed the level? Was his way of inscription so terrifying? Or was his eyesight so terrifying that he could accurately find the weakness of the formation? In the 10,000 formation pagoda, a golden light shone and Lu Ming's figure was transmitted out. Countless eyes were fixed on Lu Ming. At this moment, some people already had looks of admiration on their faces. There was no doubt that Lu Ming had won the first place in the second round. Then, Meng Chong announced the number of people who would advance to the second round. There were a total of 200 people. Out of more than 1,500 people, only 200 people succeeded in advancing, while the rest were all eliminated. The elimination rate was really shockingly high. Now, the 200 people who have advanced will proceed to the third round. The third round is a battle of strength, Meng Chong announced. Then, with a wave of his hand, inscriptions shone in the center of the white jade square and a huge, ancient bronze fighting platform emerged. Then, Meng Chong announced the rules. The third round was a test of overall strength. 2 people went up on the platform to fight. Arrays, puppets, inscription talismans, and spiritual weapons could all be used. However, the inscription talismans had to be refined by themselves. The winner would advance and the loser would be eliminated. Until the top 3 were selected, they would be rewarded with cultivation at the observation platform. As for who would fight who, it was entirely up to Meng Chong to decide. Now, whoever's name I call will go up on the platform. Meng Chong announced, sweeping his eyes across the crowd. Everyone was refreshed. Tianyun. Chapter 884. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. They did not expect Meng Chong to call out Tianyun first. Lu Ming was also stunned. He did not expect to be the first to fight. However, it did not matter to him. It did not matter to him who fought first. In a flash, Lu Ming rushed to the fighting ring. Rising Sun. Then, Meng Chong called out another name. The crowd fell silent and then they all smiled strangely. Meng Chong had deliberately called out Lu Ming to fight against Rising Sun first. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. This supreme martial artist Meng Chong was really interesting. In the crowd, Rising Sun's eyes flashed. He stepped into the void and walked to the fighting ring. Tianyun, although you passed the 36th level of the 10,000 formation pagoda, I guess you passed it by relying on your martial Dao, right? Can you pass it by relying on your inscription Dao? Rising Sun stared coldly at Lu Ming and said coldly. Around the white jade square, some people's eyes flickered. I think Rising Sun's words make sense. That's right. No one in the 10,000 formation pagoda saw how Tianyun passed the level. Maybe he passed it by relying on his martial Dao. His martial Dao is really terrifying. Yes, martial Dao can also pass the level. Why didn't I think of it before? Maybe it's true. Then it's not that great that he passed the 36th level. After all, his martial Dao is really powerful. If the other 13 Zongzi candidates were to challenge the intermediate level of the 10,000 formation pagoda, they could also pass it quickly. The discussion grew louder and louder. Many people had doubtful looks in their eyes. They all thought that Lu Ming passed the 36th level of the 10,000 formation pagoda by relying on his martial Dao. Just watch. No matter what, in the third round of the duel, one cannot use martial Dao. They can only rely on their inscription Dao. In front of everyone, we will soon know whether Tianyun's inscription Dao is strong or not. That's right. Just watch. Some people were more rational and did not rush to come to a conclusion. On the fighting ring, the Rising Sun smiled proudly when he saw that his words had aroused everyone's suspicions and denied all of Lu Ming's achievements. Humph. Tianyun, let's fight purely in the Dao of inscription. I'll let you know that it was your mistake to beat me up last time, and I'll return it to you tenfold. Rising Sun gritted his teeth. During this entire process, Lu Ming's expression remained calm and carefree, as if he didn't care at all. Are you done with your nonsense? If you're done with your nonsense, let's begin. The others still have to compete. Lu Ming said faintly. Based on his tone, it was as if he didn't care about the Rising Sun at all. Since you're looking for a beating, I'll fulfill your wish. Rising Sun said coldly. After saying that, he strode forward. Every time he took a step, an array would appear on the fighting ring. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen large arrays appeared on the fighting ring. These large arrays condensed monstrous flames and rushed towards Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming took a step forward. Inscriptions spread out from his feet as if they were alive and swam towards the array set up by the Rising Sun. Puff. Puff. The array set up by the Rising Sun was like a bubble that disappeared with a puff. The flames that filled the sky also disappeared without a trace. What's going on? The rising sun was shocked. He roared and waved his hands. Another array appeared on the ground. However, this array was only half formed when Lu Ming took a step forward. The rising sun's array, which had just appeared, disappeared with a puff. The rising sun roared and continued to inscribe the array. However, Lu Ming took another step forward. The rising sun's array was also half formed and disappeared. Impossible. The rising sun's eyes were red. He roared and continued to set up the array. The blue spiritual fire between his eyebrows jumped crazily. However, Lu Ming was expressionless. With his hands behind his back, he casually stepped on the ground as if he was taking a stroll. Every time he took a step, the rising sun's array would collapse and dissipate. What a brilliant method to break the array. Every time the rising sun inscribes a large array, Tianyun accurately sees the weakness of his array and breaks it. A white-haired old man stroked his beard and nodded with a surprised expression on his face. Many people recognized that this was an elder of the Talisman Puppet sect. He was an 8th-level inscription master and was extremely powerful. Since an 8th-level inscription master had spoken, it couldn't be wrong. Many people gasped and their eyes were filled with shock. Tianyun was actually able to see through the weakness of the array of the rising sun before it was completed. In fact, he was only halfway through the array of the rising sun. This was simply too terrifying. If it was a complete array, it would be reasonable to be able to see through the weakness. However, when the array was only half formed and not completely revealed, it was still unknown how it would operate. It was even unknown what inscriptions the other party was going to inscribe. Yet, he was able to find the weakness. This was too terrifying. Moreover, Lu Ming took a step forward effortlessly. However, he was able to break the array of rising sun quickly. His control of the mental fire was extremely shocking. This was a blatant slap to the rising sun's face. Just now, didn't the rising sun say that Lu Ming used martial arts to break the array in the 10,000 array pagoda? Then now, Lu Ming would let him see what he used to break the array. Martial arts or the Tao of inscription. At this moment, the rising sun's face was flushed red. He roared again and again. Every time the array was inscribed halfway, it would be broken by Lu Ming. This feeling was too unbearable. It was as if he had strength but couldn't use it. Every time he was halfway through, he would have to hold it back, causing him to almost vomit blood. In the end, he roared angrily and quickly retreated. With a wave of his hand, 9 huge puppets appeared and formed a battle formation before charging towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming sneered and took a step forward. All of a sudden, dense inscriptions appeared on the ground. A huge array emerged and 9 combat swords condensed. With a slash, the 9 puppets of the Rising Sun sect were slashed into 2 halves. At the same time, another array appeared under the Rising Sun's feet. Vines flew out and entangled the rising sun. Following that, the array shone brightly as fists formed one after another and charged towards the rising sun from all directions. No, I admit defeat. The rising sun shouted, but it was too late. The endless fists drowned the rising sun. Only the rising sun's mournful screams could be heard on the battle stage. When the fists disappeared and the array disappeared, the rising sun was lying miserably on the battle stage. His body was covered in wounds and his face was swollen like a pig's head. It was impossible to recognize him as the rising sun. Looking at the miserable appearance of the rising sun, many people felt a chill run down their spines. Heart mastery. The use of the spiritual flame has reached heart mastery. Amazing. It was still the 8th level inscriptionist who spoke. He stroked his beard and was full of admiration. What? Tianyun has reached heart mastery? Many people were shocked. Heart mastery was only 1 step away, but the difference was like heaven and earth. Apart from the 13 Zongzi candidates, only Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming were able to reach the Heart of Will's realm. Chapter 885. Now, no one doubted that Lu Ming was using martial arts to challenge the 10,000 formation pagoda. His eyesight was too terrifying, he could easily see through the weaknesses. His control of the spirit flame had reached the heart realm. Maybe he could really pass the 36th floor. This was too shocking. Tianyan's martial arts were so terrifying, even his inscription art was so terrifying. How could the others survive? Ji Mai, Yan Tenghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming's eyes turned solemn. This time, Tianyan might be their strongest opponent. Huh, not bad, not bad. Du Songjue, Bai Shijin and the others nodded and laughed. It seems like this kid is quite vengeful. Bai Shijin laughed. He was referring to the incident where Lu Ming beat the rising sun up. A real man should be like this. When you're bullied, of course you have to fight back. I feel like Lu Ming's temperament is quite similar to mine. No wonder this kid could cause a war in Jiulong City. Du Songjue smiled while stroking his snow-white beard. Since knowing that Liao Tsang was assassinated by Martial Emperor De, Du Songjue and the others of the puppet sect had given up on the idea of relying on Martial Emperor De. Now, they were thinking about how to deal with Martial Emperor De. Therefore, Du Songjue's opinion of Lu Ming had changed greatly. Naturally, he hoped that Lu Ming could become stronger. It would be best if he could lead the puppet sect to fight against Martial Emperor De in the future. That's true, but Lu Ming's formation is a fist. Where did he learn it from? Why haven't I heard of such a formation before? Bai Shijin asked doubtfully. The formation was formed into a fist, and its power was not very strong. It was as if it was specially made to beat people up. They had lived for thousands of years, but they had never seen such a formation. However, they would soon know the answer. Since you're looking for a beating, I'll fulfill your wish. What do you think? This is the formation I've researched 2 days ago. It's pretty good, right? Lu Ming walked up to the rising sun and smiled. Lu Ming had learned countless inscriptions from Dandan. And all formations were composed of inscriptions. Lu Ming had nothing to do for the past 2 days, so he conceived such a formation. It was very effective to beat people up. High in the air, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others were dumbfounded, exchanging glances with each other. As it turned out, this formation was developed by Lu Ming himself and was specifically used to beat people up. At the same time, they were also shocked that Lu Ming was able to develop his own array formation. This was something that could only be done with an extremely solid foundation. Rising Sun's eyes were so swollen that he couldn't open them. His body moved with all his might, and he was terrified of Lu Ming. Tianyun wins this battle, Meng Chong announced. Lu Ming smiled and left the fighting ring. Someone went up and helped Rising Sun off the stage. Tianyun, good fight. Bai Chi Snow was so excited that her face was flushed red, and she clenched her fists tightly. The competition continued. Meng Chong called out names, and the contestants fought one-on-one. Lu Ming stood below, looking at the fighting ring. Lu Ming had seen a lot of battles between cultivators, but he rarely saw battles between inscription masters. Lu Ming watched with interest, watching all kinds of array formations flickering, and all kinds of puppets pouncing on each other. It was quite exciting. Meng Chong seemed to have done it on purpose. Those high god realm geniuses avoided each other from the start. Soon, it was Bai Chi Snow's turn. Bai Chi Snow's opponent wasn't strong, and Bai Chi Snow easily won. One day and one night later, all 200 contestants had finished their battles, leaving only 100 contestants. The next 100 contestants continued to fight one-on-one, and Meng Chong called out names. This time, Lu Ming was at the back of the line. When he went up the stage, his opponent directly admitted defeat. This person wasn't as strong as Rising Sun, and the Rising Sun was easily defeated by Lu Ming. Naturally, his opponent quickly admitted defeat to avoid humiliating himself. Soon, the top 50 contestants were born. Bai Chi Snow didn't advance to the next round. She met an expert and lost. Next was the competition to determine the top 25 contestants. Those who could enter the top 50 were all geniuses among geniuses. Among them, there were more than 30 high god realm geniuses, and the rest were quasi-god realm geniuses. The competition continued. This time, Lu Ming Snow's opponent was a quasi-god realm genius. However, under Lu Ming's lightning-fast array formations, the quasi-god realm genius was quickly defeated. His spiritual fire had reached the Heart's End realm, and his speed of engraving array formations was too fast. Other than that, Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming also won the competition in a crushing manner. There was no suspense. The top 25 contestants were born. To everyone's surprise, several high god realm geniuses were defeated by several newcomers. Without a doubt, these newcomers were all rising geniuses, and they were very strong. Next, among the 25 contestants, this old man will choose Ji Mai to enter the top 4. The remaining 24 contestants will fight one-on-one, until the last 3 contestants will fight with Ji Mai for the top 3. Do you have any objections? Meng Chang's voice echoed throughout the square. No objections. I have no objections. The other 24 contestants voiced their agreement. Ji Mai was too strong, and they would lose without a doubt if they fought him. It was better to let him advance to the next round, and they wouldn't have to face him in advance. The others naturally agreed. This time, Ji Mai's strength was publicly acknowledged as the #1 contestant. Good, since all of you agree, Ji Mai won't fight for the time being. Next, Yan Tonghua against Gao Lu. Meng Chong announced. Yan Tonghua flew up. His opponent was a beautiful girl, who was also a high god realm genius. Yan Tonghua belonged to the puppet faction, and he was good at controlling puppets. Gao Lu belonged to the talisman faction, and she was good at inscription talismans. Gao Lu took out 6 6th-tier 9th-tier inscription talismans, which shone with various lights. Some were used for protection, while others were used for attack and trapping. But Yan Tonghua waved his hand, and 12 puppets appeared. These 12 puppets weren't 6th-tier 9th-tier, but 6th-tier 10th-tier. The 6th-tier 10th-tier had surpassed the 9th-tier of the spiritual sea realm, and was equivalent to the perfected spiritual sea realm. Inscription talismans and puppets were similar to demonic beasts, and corresponded to martial arts. The strength of an inscriptionist had little to do with the level of spiritual fire. It mainly depended on the arrays you inscribed, the inscription talismans you mastered, and the puppets you controlled. For example, Yan Tonghua controlled 12 6th-tier 10th-tier puppets at the same time, which was equivalent to 12 experts at the perfected spiritual sea realm attacking at the same time. Moreover, he had set up an array, which was extremely powerful. Yan Tonghua ranked 115th on the list of top 1,000 talents, and his strength was terrifying. The powerful puppets easily tore through Gao Lu's attack and defense, and defeated her easily. After that, Meng Jia and Hu Ming did the same. They displayed amazing strength and defeated their opponents to enter the top 12. Tianyun against Feng Tai. Meng Chang's voice rang out. Lu Ming stepped forward. When he saw his opponent, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Feng Tai ranked 183rd on the list of top 1,000 talents. He was very strong, and he was also a genius that Lu Ming had beaten up last time. Chapter 886. However, Feng Tai did not provoke Lu Ming as much as the rising sun did. He had seen the rising sun's fate and was wary of Lu Ming. Tianyun, it won't be easy for you to defeat me. I don't believe that your inscription Dao is that strong. Feng Tai said in a deep voice. Make your move. You'll know once you try. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Feng Tai did not say anything. He waved his hand and 12 giant puppets appeared in front of him. They were 12 giant wolves. Their bodies were black and they exuded a powerful aura. There were 6 class 6 10th LV and 6 peak class 6 9th LV. Each of them was 5 meters tall and 10 meters long. They looked like 12 giant monsters. The 12 giant wolf puppets formed a big formation. With a roar, they pounced on Lu Ming. There was a loud roar in the fighting ring. This Feng Tai should have ignited 7 spirit lamps for each level. Lu Ming's heart stirred. An ordinary inscription master was able to control 1 or 2 puppets, and that was already pretty good. But Feng Tai was able to control 12 powerful puppets at the same time, and he was even able to form a formation. His mental energy was definitely very strong, far surpassing an ordinary inscription master. At the same time, his use of the spirit flame must have reached the peak of the subtle realm. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to do so. In the past, Lu Ming had only learned a little about the tribes in the underground world from Liao Cong. He did not understand the essence. Moreover, the talents of the underground world were limited and their spirit flame was not strong. Their control of the spirit flame was also very shallow. Generally, they could only control 1 puppet. They were far inferior to the prodigies of the talisman puppet sect. Lu Ming put his hands behind his back and smiled faintly at the 12 puppets. He did not summon any puppets or inscription scrolls. What is Tianyun trying to do? Is he trying to use a formation to fight against Feng Tai's puppet battle formation? How is that possible? Carving the formation in an instant. Carving the formation can't be very advanced. It's okay to use it to deal with some opponents with great disparity in strength. But to use it to deal with Feng Tai's puppet battle formation. This is a bit too much. It's hard to say. Tianyun has already reached the heart of perfection realm, and his speed of inscribing formations is peerlessly fast. Perhaps he can instantly inscribe some powerful formations to resist Feng Tai's puppet battle formation. Seeing this situation, many people began to discuss. Just as the puppet was about to reach Lu Ming lightly stepped forward. Instantly, numerous spell formations appeared on the ground. There were a total of 12 spell formations, each of which glowed brightly as human silhouettes appeared. Lu Ming. What the formation condensed were all images of Lu Ming. They were exactly the same as him. The onlookers were dumbfounded. What kind of formation is this? Why haven't I seen it before? I've never even heard of it, let alone seen it. Someone exclaimed. 12 images of Lu Ming appeared beside the 12 puppets. Their figures flashed as they rushed towards the puppets. Then, they stretched out their palms and slapped the puppets. Break! Feng Tai roared as he controlled the puppets to attack the 12 images. Pung! 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 The 12 images were very fragile. They directly collapsed after being hit by the puppets. However, before Feng Tai could reveal a smile, the collapsed images turned into lines of inscriptions that spread across the 12 puppets, forming a formation and entering the puppets' bodies. I don't care what tricks you're playing, take this. Feng Tai roared as he controlled the puppets to continue attacking Lu Ming. This time, Lu Ming stood on the fighting ring with his hands behind his back. He really didn't move, not even his feet. What is Tianyun trying to do? He's not moving at all. Does he want to die? Or is he going to admit defeat? At such a close distance, it's too late for him to inscribe a formation to resist. Has he really given up? Does he know that he's no match for Feng Tai? There was an uproar all around. Tianyun, fight back. Below the ring, Bai Chi Shui shouted with a worried look. Roar. The giant wolf puppet roared as it waved its sharp claws towards Lu Ming. It's over. Tianyun is over. I don't know what's wrong with him. He's not fighting back or admitting defeat. Someone exclaimed. Lu Ming didn't admit defeat, so Feng Tai could continue to attack. In the sky, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others also looked at the fighting ring without blinking. Their eyes were full of doubts. They didn't know what Lu Ming was planning. Pretending to be mysterious. Then, you'll lose. Feng Tai's eyes were filled with madness and a hint of joy. He could finally take revenge for the previous incident. Seeing that the giant wolf puppet's claws were about to reach Lu Ming's body, the 12 giant wolf puppets suddenly stopped and stiffened in front of Lu Ming. Huh? What's going on? Could it be that Feng Tai is showing mercy? It must be so. Feng Tai must see that Tianyun can't fight back, so he stopped the puppets. Everyone guessed. But they didn't see that Feng Tai's face had become very strange. It was full of doubt, surprise, and even shock. Roar! The 12 giant wolf puppets roared and then turned around one after another, standing in front of Lu Ming and looking at Feng Tai. Many people were puzzled. Something was wrong with this posture. Go! At this time, Lu Ming spoke. Then, the 12 giant wolf puppets roared and rushed towards Feng Tai. Impossible! Feng Tai let out an incredulous roar. The blue light between his eyebrows shone, and the spiritual flame was jumping crazily. However, he found that he had completely lost control of the 12 puppets. It was as if his connection with the 12 puppets had been cut off. He was shocked. Rumble. The 12 giant puppets stepped on the fighting ring and pounced towards him. He roared and waved his hands, inscribing a formation on the ground. Light shone and the formation appeared. Unfortunately, it couldn't stop the iron hooves of the puppets. In an instant, the formation he inscribed was destroyed. The giant wolf puppet's huge claws grabbed towards Feng Tai. I admit defeat, I admit defeat. Feng Tai shouted. The giant wolf puppet's claws stopped above Feng Tai's head. All around, everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. What's going on? What the hell is going on? How did Feng Tai's puppets get controlled by Tianyun? I don't fucking know. Nestle, what's going on? Could it be that the formation that Tianyun inscribed before, the formation that condensed 12 identical bodies, is that the formation that controlled Feng Tai's puppets instead? What? There's such a formation in the world? Why didn't I know about it? There was an uproar in the surroundings. Many people couldn't control their emotions and cursed. The most important thing was that this scene was too strange and shocking. What kind of formation is this? In the sky, Bai Shijin and Du Songjue looked at each other in a daze. Chapter 887. Liao Cang's master never mentioned anything like this. If he did, he would have passed it down. Du Songjue said. The others nodded in agreement. Looks like Lu Ming didn't just receive Master Liao Cang's inheritance, he also had other fortuitous encounters. Bai Shijin exclaimed. This array is very magical. However, its effect is not as great as imagined. It is completely dependent on one's strong mental strength and the array to cut off the other party's connection with the puppet and take it for one's own use. Lu Ming's mental strength is much stronger than Feng Tai's. This is why he can do it. Du Songjue pondered as he commented. His eyesight was extremely sharp, his guess was not far from the truth. Lu Ming's formation was, of course, learned from Dandan. Just like what Du Songjue said, it requires a much stronger spiritual power than the opponent to be able to do it. If one's spiritual power was weaker than the opponent's, then it would be impossible to do it. But other than Du Songjue, who was a supreme being, normal people wouldn't be able to see through it. Naturally, they were shocked beyond words. Meng Chong was also stunned for a moment before he announced, this battle, Tianyun wins. The crowd was in an uproar. It was the first time they saw such a victory. Roar. The 12 giant wolf puppets roared and walked towards Lu Ming. Wait, Tianyun, my puppets, can you give them back to me? Feng Tai shouted. Yours? You must be mistaken. These puppets are obviously mine. If you don't believe me, you can call them and see if they will respond to you. Lu Ming said with a smile. Feng Tai stammered for a long time, but he couldn't say a word. His face flushed red, then he gritted his teeth and said, these puppets were originally mine. Everyone saw it. Don't you know they are spoils of war? If you have the ability, take them back. Lu Ming stared at Feng Tai with an unfriendly gaze. Roar. The 12 puppets roared and stared coldly at Feng Tai. They bared their teeth as if they were going to pounce on him at any time. Feng Tai's face turned pale. Lu Ming smiled and waved his hand, putting the 12 puppets into his storage ring. Feng Tai's heart was bleeding. The 12 puppets, especially the 6 puppets at the 10th LV of the 6th level, were as powerful as warriors in the exceptional spiritual sea realm. Moreover, they were invulnerable and fearless. When they fought, they were even more powerful than warriors in the exceptional spiritual sea realm. Each of them was priceless. He had paid a huge price to obtain it. His heart was bleeding. The same level of inscriptions. The inscription symbol scroll was much easier to refine because it was a one-time use item. It could only be used once, and then it would disappear. But a puppet could be used for a long time. The refining process was very complex, and the materials used were very precious. The price was much higher than an inscription symbol scroll of the same level. Lu Ming was in a good mood as he left the fighting ring. Around, many people cast envious looks at Lu Ming. But Ruyan Tonghua and the other talents of the puppet faction looked dignified. They thought that if they met Lu Ming later, they couldn't use the puppets. Otherwise, they would lose a lot of money. In this way, Lu Ming also entered the top 12 smoothly. The competition continued. Soon, the top 12 were all born. After a break, the competition continued. It was the competition of the top 12 to the top 6. This time, Lu Ming's opponent was still a talent of the puppet faction. This person was very strong and ranked higher than Feng Tai. But facing Lu Ming, he was trembling with fear. He didn't even dare to take out the puppets. He just fought with Lu Ming with inscription arrays. The main reason was that he was afraid that the puppets would be taken by Lu Ming, an inscription master who majored in puppets. If he didn't use puppets and only used arrays, how strong could his combat power be? Lu Ming waved his hands. The 12 giant wolf puppets that he had obtained from Feng Tai charged forward. With the help of Lu Ming's array, they easily defeated this prodigy. This person was really aggrieved. He majored in puppets, but he couldn't use puppets. He was also beaten by Lu Ming's puppets. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. There was another person who was also depressed to death. That was Feng Tai. These were his puppets, but now they were used by Lu Ming to fight against the enemy. Lu Ming's competition was unique and not intense at all. The other competitions were very intense. On the battle stage, light shone, and it was an eye-opener for many people. Soon, the top 6 were also out. Unsurprisingly, Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, Hu Ming, Lu Ming, and 2 other talents were in the top 6. Next, the top 6 would advance to the top 3. After entering the top 3, the 4 of them, together with Ji Mai, would compete for the top 3, which was also the quota to enter the sky-gazing grounds. Many people were in high spirits. This was because in this round, Lu Ming, Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming were going to have a duel no matter what. The 4 of them were all talents who had mastered the spiritual fire and cultivated to the heart attainment realm. Their strength was obviously above the others. The competition continues. The first round, Tianyun against Hu Ming. Meng Chong announced loudly. The people present were shocked, and then they cheered loudly. Tianyun against Hu Ming. This was going to be interesting. This time, Hu Ming was the biggest dark horse, but Tianyun could also be said to be a dark horse because he had only shown powerful martial arts before. No one thought that his inscription Dao would be so powerful. The battle between the 2 dark horses was about to see who was stronger. Moreover, Hu Ming was from the Talisman faction. He was not afraid of Lu Ming's arrays that could cut off other people's puppets. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 of them flew up to the fighting stage. Tianyun Zongzi, please. Hu Ming was very polite. He nodded slightly and greeted Lu Ming. He called Lu Ming Zongzi. This was one of the few people in the Talisman Puppets sect who called Lu Ming Zongzi. Please. Lu Ming nodded and cupped his fists. Stomp. Stomp. Hu Ming was the first to move. He took a few steps and inscriptions appeared on the ground. In an instant, a few arrays shone brightly. Scarlet flames condensed and formed battle swords that floated in front of Hu Ming. At the same time, a total of 15 inscription talisman scrolls floated around him. The inscription talisman scrolls opened one by one. Some of the talisman scrolls were for protection. They formed a flaming shield and some formed a flaming dragon. Whoosh! Roar! The flaming battle swords and the flaming dragon attacked Lu Ming. What a powerful flame! Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Regardless of whether it was the array or the inscription talisman scroll that Hu Ming inscribed, they were all flames. Moreover, this kind of flame had a frighteningly high temperature. Lu Ming felt that it was comparable to the pure purple heavenly fire cultivated by the ancient Wang family. Moreover, even though inscription masters didn't comprehend the concept of heaven and earth, every single inscription was in accordance with the great Tao of heaven and earth. They were obtained from the great Tao of heaven and earth, so the inscriptions inscribed by inscription masters would naturally contain the concept of heaven and earth. The flames that Hu Ming inscribed with arrays were extremely terrifying. Bang! Bang! Chapter 888. Lu Ming's array formation was different from Hu Ming's. Most of Hu Ming's array formations were red, but Lu Ming's array formations were blue. A dragon roared and a blue dragon condensed in the blue array formation. It rushed towards Hu Ming's battle sword and the flaming dragon and collided with each other. For a time, there was a continuous roar and a sizzling sound could be heard on the fighting stage. White mist filled the entire place. Lu Ming's array formations were all about water. The attacks that were launched were all related to water. Lu Ming took a few steps and waved his fingers. Arrays kept appearing on the fighting ring. There were water swords, water spears, flood dragons, ferocious tigers, and so on that were condensed from water. They pounced on Hu Ming. Hu Ming was also constantly inscribing array formations. At the same time, he was using inscription talismans to launch powerful attacks. Of course, Hu Ming's attacks were all blazing flames. It was a showdown between water and fire. Tianyun has learned so many things. The array formations he inscribed before were not related to water, but other attributes. That's right. Tianyun is really amazing. He is a peerless genius. Not only is his martial art strong, but his inscription skills are also amazing. We have underestimated him. That's right. With his talent, he is qualified to be a Zongzi candidate. That's right. Inscriptionists were the same as martial artists. They were also biased. The inscriptions and array formations that they mastered were also biased towards a certain type. For example, Hu Ming was biased towards fire. The array formations that he inscribed were all related to fire. Some people were biased towards water, ice, thunder, and so on. Moreover, array formations were the same as martial arts. Many of them were passed down privately and not everyone could cultivate them. It was like a secret skill. The spiritual fire was like a martial artist's true essence. Array formations were like martial arts. Go! Lu Ming took out the puppets that he had obtained from Feng Tai. With a wave of his hand, the 12 puppets roared and rushed towards Hu Ming. While controlling the puppets, Lu Ming also inscribed a formation. This left many people dumbfounded. Lu Ming was controlling 12 puppets at the same time, and he was still able to continuously inscribe formations without slowing down at all. This was somewhat terrifying. Just how strong was Lu Ming's spiritual power? Hu Ming's eyes revealed a dignified look. He waved his hand, and another stack of inscription scrolls appeared in front of him. His spiritual fire spread out, and he constantly activated the inscription scrolls. He constantly attacked Lu Ming and the puppets. Moreover, all of Hu Ming's inscription talisman scrolls were at the 6th level and 10th level. They were very powerful. So powerful, both of them are so powerful. Tianyun and Hu Ming's strength is no weaker than Yan Tonghua and Meng Jia's. That's right, any one of them has the strength to enter the top 3. Even many of the older generation nodded in shock. Below the stage, Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, and Meng Jia's eyes were very dignified. If water doesn't work, then let's add ice. Lu Ming's mouth curved into a smile. He waved his fingers, and a formation appeared. The temperature of the stage dropped sharply, and countless ice swords appeared, stabbing towards Hu Ming. Lu Ming's hands moved faster and faster. On the stage, more and more formations appeared, and more attacks were launched. The dense ice swords had begun to suppress Hu Ming's attacks. Coupled with the attacks of the 12 puppets, Hu Ming was already at a disadvantage. Fast, too fast. How can Tianyun's inscription speed be so terrifying? It's far faster than Hu Ming's. Tianyun's cultivation level is higher than Hu Ming's. Tianyun has at least reached the middle stage of heart satisfaction. So terrifying, a mere 6th level inscriptionist can reach the middle stage of heart satisfaction. Too powerful. Everyone was amazed. At this time, the stage was filled with white light and cold air, as if it could freeze the air. Hu Ming had no power to fight back. I admit defeat. At this time, Hu Ming suddenly shouted. Lu Ming moved his hand and waved it again. The array on the fighting ring disappeared simultaneously. Hu Ming panted heavily, and the spiritual flame between his eyebrows pulsed continuously. He felt exhausted. In the previous battle, his spiritual flame had been severely depleted, and he could no longer fight. On the other hand, Lu Ming was calm and composed, as if the previous battle had not consumed much of his energy. Tianyun Zongzi is strong and has profound spiritual power. Hu Ming admires you. Hu Ming smiled and cupped his fists. You're strong too. I won by luck. Lu Ming smiled. Tianyun wins this battle. Next, Yan Tonghua against Zhang Xian. Meng Chong announced. Everyone perked up and watched the next battle. Yan Tonghua was a prodigy of the marionette faction, and Zhang Xian was also a prodigy of the marionette faction. Both of them were very strong, and the battle was very intense. On the stage, a large group of puppets were fighting, but in the end, Yan Tonghua's spiritual power was stronger, and his spiritual flame was stronger. He controlled more puppets and defeated Zhang Xian. Then, it was Meng Jia's turn. Meng Jia was also a prodigy of the marionette faction. He controlled an army of puppets and won. Just like that, the top 3 were born. They were Lu Ming, Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, and Ji Mai. They were the top 4. The 4 of them looked at each other. They only needed to eliminate one more person to get a spot on the observation platform. The 4 of you will take turns to fight, and you will be ranked according to your results. Meng Chong announced. Lu Ming nodded. Usually, the ranking would be based on this hairstyle. It was the fairest. In this way, each person would have to fight 3 rounds against the other 3. The first battle, Tianyun against Yan Tonghua. Next, Ji Mai against Meng Jia. Meng Chong announced. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere in the arena was completely ignited. The final battle was finally about to begin. Lu Ming and Yan Tonghua went up at the same time and stood facing each other. Between Tianyun and Yan Tonghua, who do you think will win? I think it will be Tianyun. Tianyun has that kind of formation that can restrain the puppets. At the same time, Tianyun is also very strong. Being able to defeat Hu Ming is enough to prove his strength. I think so too. Among the 4 of them, only Ji Mai can fight with Tianyun. Yan Tonghua and Meng Jia are probably weaker than him. The crowd began to discuss, but now, no one looked down on Lu Ming. Up until now, Lu Ming had already proven himself. Tianyun, although your formation is strange, it must have its limits. It can't casually cut off the opponent's connection with the puppets and take them for your own use. It won't be that easy for you to defeat me, Yen Tonghua said. His eyes were filled with strong battle intent. Obviously, a prodigy like him wouldn't admit defeat so easily. We'll know in a battle. Lu Ming chuckled. All right, then let's fight. Yen Tonghua waved his hand, and a total of 15 puppets appeared in front of him. Each of them emitted a strong aura. Each of them was a Class 6 LV Stage 10 puppet. Yen Tonghua could actually control 15 Class 6 LV Stage 10 puppets at the same time. Chapter 889. Lu Ming had a faint smile on his face as he stared at the 15 puppets. His expression was very calm. The puppets were getting closer and closer to Lu Ming. Countless people looked at Lu Ming's figure on the stage. They knew that Lu Ming was going to use that move again. Would that move still work on Yen Tonghua? Everyone's eyes were fixed on the stage. Soon, the answer would be revealed. Just when the puppets were a few meters away from Lu Ming took a step forward. On the ground, a total of 15 arrays appeared. In a flash of light, 15 figures that looked exactly like Lu Ming appeared. As soon as they appeared, they pounced on the 15 puppets. Bang! Bang! As soon as the figures came into contact with the puppets, they would explode like balloons and turn into inscriptions that filled the puppets, forming a large array and entering the puppets. Come on, I don't believe that you can cut off the connection between me and the puppets. Yen Tonghua's eyes flickered. Between his eyebrows, the spirit fire jumped. In front of Lu Ming, the 15 puppets stopped moving at the same time. Dazzling lights were emitting from the heads of the 15 puppets. This was Lu Ming cutting off the connection between Yen Tonghua and the puppets. You want to cut off my spirit fire? Impossible. Yen Tonghua roared and stopped all his movements. Light flickered between his eyebrows. A blue spirit fire jumped continuously, turning into invisible spirit threads that connected the 15 puppets. It was indestructible. Between Lu Ming's eyebrows, there was also a blue spirit fire jumping. He was using an array to cut off the connection between Yen Tonghua and the puppets. However, Yen Tonghua's spirit force was much stronger than Feng Tai's. Moreover, the use of the spirit fire had reached the heart of will realm. His spirit force was tenacious and indomitable. It was more than 10 times harder to cut it off than Feng Tai. Lu Ming found that he had encountered a strong resistance. You can't stop me, Lu Ming muttered. The mental energy flame between his eyebrows burned even brighter, as if it was about to materialize. Wave after wave of mental energy rushed into the puppet's head, acting on the array. The puppet's head flashed with light, incomparably dazzling. I won't lose. Yen Tonghua's eyes were incomparably resolute as he resisted with all his might. In the end, he even let out a loud roar as spiritual rings appeared above his head. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, and blue spirit rings. The first 4 spirit rings had 8 light spots on each of them, and they were dazzling. The cyan and blue spirit rings each had 7 light spots. This meant that Yen Tonghua had ignited 8 spirit lamps in the first 4 levels, and 7 spirit lamps in the 5th and 6th levels. If Yen Tonghua couldn't ignite his 8th mind lamp at grade 6, then his next step would be to break through grade 6 to grade 7. In the first 4 levels, he had ignited 8 spirit lamps, and in the 5th and 6th levels, he had ignited 7. Such a result was already very impressive. The appearance of the spiritual ring caused Yen Tonghua's spiritual power to increase greatly. His spiritual power surged into the puppet like a tide. Roar! Roar! The 15 puppets roared as their bodies trembled slightly, as if they were about to be controlled by Yen Tonghua again. Looks like Tianyun's array requires a strong spiritual power to cut off the other party's connection with the puppet. At this time, the others also saw the mystery behind it. This is normal. Otherwise, If it could cut off the other party's connection with the puppet and take the puppet for himself, then this array is too heaven-defying and illogical. Many people nodded. However, they still stared at the battle stage without blinking, waiting to see if Lu Ming could successfully suppress Yan Tonghua. If he couldn't take Yan Tonghua's puppet, then it would be hard to say who would win in a head-on battle. Yan Tonghua, you can't stop me. The corner of Lu Ming's mouth curled up into a smile. At this moment, his eyes seemed to be suffused with a blue light. Buzz! All of a sudden, rings appeared above his head. They were spiritual rings. Tianyun released his spiritual rings. Look at how many spiritual lamps he has lit. Wait, this. Oh my God, I'm seeing things, I'm seeing things. Why did I see 10 spiritual lamps in the first 5 rings? My eyes are also playing tricks on me. Damn it, why are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why did I see him lighting up 10 spirit lamps? Can you guys help me see how many he has lit up? I also saw 10 spiritual lamps. The first 5 rings all have 10 spiritual lamps. The 6th ring has 5 spiritual lamps. What? Why are you seeing the same thing as me? Are you seeing things too? I saw the same thing too. Me too. The scene was noisy. Almost everyone couldn't believe what they were seeing and subconsciously thought that they were seeing things. But when all of them gave the same answer, they were stunned. All of a sudden, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Everyone's eyes widened and their mouths opened wider and wider. All of them were involuntarily convulsing. 10 spiritual lamps were lit in the first 5 rings. That was too terrifying. All of them had reached perfection. Was he still human? For tens of thousands of years in the Talisman Puppet sect, only Emperor Liansong could achieve such a result. Now, there was another one. As for the 6th level, there were only 5 light spots. This was because Lu Ming had yet to reach the peak of this level. Oh my God, he's simply a monster. No wonder the masters of the 2 sects and the various elders made Lu Ming a candidate Zongzi. Isn't it normal to be a candidate Zongzi with such talent? In the crowd, Rising Sun, Guan Rong, Feng Tai, and the others who had been beaten up by Lu Ming were tongue-tied. They stood there in a daze and were completely speechless. It turned out that their enemy was such a monster. At this moment, they were secretly glad that they were still alive. They were simply not on the same level as Lu Ming. Forget it, it's unwise to be an enemy of such a monster. Rising Sun shook his head and sighed. He originally wanted to take revenge on Lu Ming in the future, but now, he had completely given up on that thought. Feng Tai, Guan Rong and the other Sky Prides also shook their heads and sighed. They admitted that they were unlucky. Who asked them to be blind? Ji Mai, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming's eyes widened in shock. It's not wrong for me to lose to him, Hu Ming said with a smile. On the other side, Bai Qi's little mouth was wide open and could not be closed for a long time. This guy, he really hid it from me, Bai Qi thought in her heart. Many elders of the Talisman Puppet sect were also unaware of this beforehand. At this moment, they were also extremely shocked. They looked at the smiling Bai Shijin and the others in the sky and finally understood that the elders had long known about Lu Ming's talent. On the battle stage, Yan Tonghua was even more shocked. He was tongue-tied, and even his mental energy ring was shaking. Boom! Chapter 890. Roar! Roar! The puppet's roar shook everyone's spirits and brought them back to their senses. Tianyun, I've lost. Yan Tonghua's shock turned into a deep sigh. Many people sighed in their hearts as well. It was normal for Yan Tonghua to lose. It wasn't that Yan Tonghua wasn't strong enough, but that Lu Ming was too monstrous. He had mastered a formation that could restrain him. After Yan Tonghua admitted defeat, he turned around and was about to leave. Wait! Lu Ming shouted. Yen Tonghua turned around and said, "Is there anything else?" "Your puppet." Lu Ming smiled and pointed at the 15 puppets. Yen Tonghua was slightly stunned, then he clasped his fists and said, "Thank you." Then he waved his hand and put away the puppets, walking down the fighting ring. "Well, not bad, not bad." In the sky, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and a few old Yun nodded their heads. He had won and even returned the puppet to Yen Tonghua. This proved that Lu Ming was not someone who was greedy for petty gains. He was upright and upright. He had defeated Feng Tai and kept Feng Tai's puppet because Feng Tai had offended Lu Ming in the past and had a grudge against Lu Ming. Since there was a grudge, of course he had to teach Feng Tai a lesson. Tianyun wins this battle. Meng Chong announced, winning loud cheers. "Tianyun, Tianyun, I love you." Loud cheers burst out from nowhere. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound and found that it was from a group of young women. These women's eyes were shining as they looked at the elegant Lu Ming in the fighting ring and shouted loudly. Lu Ming had a delicate appearance. Coupled with his cultivation of martial arts, his temperament was very special and had a different kind of charm. For young women, he was very attractive. At this moment, Lu Ming had displayed his incomparable talent, which naturally attracted the attention of many young women. Lu Ming rubbed his nose with a wry smile and walked down the fighting ring, causing countless young men to cast envious, jealous, and hateful gazes at him. After Lu Ming left the stage, Ji Mai and Meng Jia stepped onto the stage. The crowd quieted down and turned their attention back to the fighting stage. Ji Mai's ranking on the list of top 1,000 talents was higher than Meng Jia's, but that was a few years ago. Now, it was hard to say who was stronger. Countless people were curious to know if Meng Jia could fight with Ji Mai. Without any superfluous words, the two of them made their move. Meng Jia was also a prodigy of the marionette faction. He summoned 15 marionettes at once. Like Yen Tonghua, they were all class 6 10th tier. However, Meng Jia's puppets were much smaller. They were actually puppets with the appearance of large snow-white condors. The snow-white eagle exuded an icy aura. Its wings were like ice blades, dancing in the air and forming a formation that slashed towards Ji Mai. Ji Mai's face was calm. He took a few steps and a formation appeared on the ground. Sharp golden sword radiance shot out from the formation and slashed towards the snow-white eagles. At the same time, inscription talismans appeared around him. His mind power flowed, and the inscription talismans opened. Endless golden light burst out. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar sounded in the fighting ring. The wings of the snow-white eagle puppets were like blades, constantly colliding with the golden sword radiance. Swoosh! Ji Mai waved his hand and a row of inscription talismans flew out. After they were activated, the sky was filled with golden sword radiance. It fell from the sky and slashed towards Meng Jia. Meng Jia shouted. With a wave of her hands, 3 puppets flew back to her and formed a protective formation around her. Ji Mai wouldn't be able to break through in a short period of time. For a moment, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched. The battle lasted for more than 10 minutes. It seems that Ji Mai can't defeat Meng Jia. Yes, the two of them are evenly matched. Meng Jia's strength is not weaker than Yen Tonghua's, but also not stronger. So, will Tianyun get first place this time? It's hard to say. Ji Mai is from the Talisman faction. Tianyun won't be able to restrain him. It's hard to say. Sounds of discussion came from all around. Lu Ming was also watching seriously. He frowned and his gaze fell on Ji Mai. He had a feeling that Ji Mai wasn't so simple. Ji Mai gave him a dangerous feeling. Ji Mai still had a killing move that he hadn't used yet. At this moment, Ji Mai waved his hand and all the inscription talismans that hadn't been activated were put away. The others were stunned. Ji Mai actually put away the inscription talismans. Was he going to admit defeat? Or was he afraid that if he continued to fight, the inscription talismans would be consumed too much. The puppets of the puppet faction could fight a long battle. The talisman faction used inscription talismans. If they couldn't defeat their opponent in one fell swoop, they would suffer great losses. It was normal for Jimai to admit defeat. Jimai, are you going to admit defeat? Meng Jia asked. Fight. Jimai's answer was simple. Then I won't be polite. Meng Jia continued to control his puppet and rushed towards Jimai. When Meng Jia's puppet approached Jimai, Jimai's hand was like a sword. He slashed out and a dazzling sword light burst out, as if it could split the sky in half. Pung! The sword light accurately struck a large condor puppet. One of the condor puppet's wings was directly cut in half, and the large condor puppet was sent flying far away. At the same time, Jimai's palm slashed out again and again. Pung! Pung! Several eagle puppets were sent flying in succession. They were seriously injured. What a terrifying power! A 6th level 10th stage puppet was so tough, but it was cut in half by the sword light. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. Martial skill, no, it's an array. It's using one's body to carve an array. Lu Ming was shocked. His gaze fell on Jimai's body. At first, he thought it was a martial skill, but after taking a closer look, he knew it wasn't. At this moment, inscriptions appeared on Jimai's skin, forming a mysterious array. It emitted a terrifying aura that was beyond the spiritual sea level. Carving an array with one's body. Many people cried out in surprise. They were extremely shocked. Indeed, Jimai is carving an array with his body. It should be a 7th level killing array, the Golden Light 10,000 kill array. Someone from the older generation said. Carving an array with one's body. Lu Ming muttered to himself. Carving an array with one's body, as the name suggested, was to carve an array into one's body and merge it with the body. The body itself would become a killing array. It was completely different from the array Lu Ming used to carve true energy eruption arrays on his body to conceal his aura. Lu Ming's arrays were all auxiliary arrays that were temporarily on the surface of the body. After a period of time, when the energy was exhausted, they would naturally disappear. However, carving an array with one's body was different. It was to carve the array into the depths of the body and merge it with the body. The body was the array, and the array was the body. Chapter 891. For example, Jimai had inscribed a 7th grade array, the Golden Light 10,000 slaughter array. Even though it was a 7th grade array, the power of this array was still very strong. It was capable of killing spirit embryo realm practitioners. However, it was too difficult and dangerous to inscribe an array with one's own body. How powerful was the killing formation? The slightest carelessness would cause one's physical body to be minced and turned into ashes, leaving not even a corpse behind. No one had expected Jimai to be able to inscribe an array with his own body. It should be an incomplete array. Otherwise, it would be even more powerful. Some of the older generation figures saw through the array. Many people nodded. That should be the case. If it had been a complete formation, Meng Jia's puppet would have been smashed to smithereens with a single sword strike. However, even if it was an incomplete Golden Light 10,000 killing array, it was still extremely powerful. Moreover, it was difficult for a level 6 inscriber to unleash the full power of a level 7 array. If Jimai can complete the formation and inscribe the complete Golden Light 10,000 kill formation, his combat strength will be amazing. He will be able to fight against the top 100 talents on the list. That's right. If he can complete the array and become a level 7 inscriber, he will be even more powerful. Many people were discussing. Meng Jia, do you still want to fight? A sharp light flickered in Jimai's eyes, as if a sword light was about to appear. I can't believe you managed to inscribe an array with your own body. I'm impressed. I'm no match for you. This battle is meaningless. I admit defeat. Meng Jia directly admitted defeat. Meng Chong announced that Ji Mai had won. Next, Meng Chong announced the second round. Tian Yun against Meng Jia, and Ji Mai against Yen Tonghua. Meng Chong seemed to have intentionally left Ji Mai and Tian Yun for last. I admit defeat in this battle. In the arena, Meng Jia directly admitted defeat against Lu Ming. Her mental strength was on par with Yen Tonghua's. If she were to fight with Lu Ming would definitely seize the puppet in the end. There was no point in fighting this battle. Her final battle would be with Yen Tonghua for the third place. As expected, Yen Tonghua and Meng Jia had the same idea and directly admitted defeat against Ji Mai. He knew that he wasn't a match for Ji Mai, so he might as well conserve his mental power and fight Meng Jia. At this point, Tian Yun and Ji Mai had won both of their matches. They had already secured the top 3 spots and secured the spots to enter the observatory. Third round, Yen Tonghua against Meng Jia, Tian Yun against Ji Mai. Meng Chong announced. The atmosphere became even more lively. The competition had finally reached its final round. These 2 matches were able to arouse the curiosity in everyone's hearts. Yen Tonghua and Meng Jia were 2 geniuses from the puppet faction, and they were only a few places apart on the list of top 1,000 talents. Who was stronger? Ji Mai and Tian Yun, on the other hand, were the main attraction. Ji Mai had actually mastered the extremely difficult and dangerous art of carving formations with his own body. His combat prowess was incomparably powerful. Tian Yun, this dark horse, seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. The moment he appeared, he was appointed as a Zongzi candidate by the masters of the 2 sects and the various doyens. This shook the entire heaven and earth mountain. Previously, he had displayed terrifying martial arts combat strength. And this time, the inscription talent revealed in the competition was also incomparably shocking. Between Lu Ming and Ji Mai, who was stronger? Everyone was looking forward to it. Amidst everyone's anticipation, the competition began. First, Yen Tonghua and Meng Jia competed for third place. Both of them were puppets, and the battle was extremely fierce. The collision between the puppets was violent, direct, and barbaric. Both of their mind power and spiritual fire were at the early stage of heart attainment. It could be said that they were evenly matched. The 2 of them fought for a full half an hour. In the end, Yen Tonghua was more resilient and won by a slight margin. In this way, Yen Tonghua finally secured third place. Then, the final battle between Tian Yu and Ji Mai began. The 2 of them stepped onto the fighting ring and faced each other. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the fighting ring. Who do you think will win, Tian Yun or Ji Mai? It seems like Ji Mai has a higher chance of winning. After all, he has cultivated the Golden Light 10,000 kill array. It's extremely powerful and unstoppable. I don't think so. Tian Yun has many tricks up his sleeve. He's good at many arrays, and his mind power is incomparably strong. Who knows if he has any other tricks up his sleeve? That's true. This battle is going to be interesting. Gradually, the surrounding voices quieted down. Everyone stared at the 2 people on the fighting ring. Tian Yun, I won't hold back in this battle. Be careful. Ji Mai reminded. That's exactly what I wanted. Go all out. Lu Ming smiled faintly as he stared at Ji Mai. All of a sudden, a terrifying aura emanated from Ji Mai's body. Inscriptions began to appear on his skin. Whoosh! Ji Mai waved his hand, and a terrifying sword light slashed towards Lu Ming. Go! Lu Ming waved his hand, and 12 puppets appeared. They roared as they charged towards Ji Mai. Bang! A Class 9 giant wolf puppet was sliced in half by the sword light. However, the other puppets didn't stop there and continued to attack. At the same time, Lu Ming stepped forward and waved his hands, starting to inscribe an array on the ground. Whoosh! Whoosh! Ji Mai waved his hands continuously, and streaks of sword gleams flashed. Lu Ming controlled the puppets to pounce and defend against the sword gleams. Among the 12 puppets, 6 of them were Class 9 giant wolf puppets. They were quickly sliced in half and turned into scrap metal. The other 6 were also severely injured. However, they managed to block the attacks for 10 breaths of time, which bought Lu Ming enough time to inscribe an array. Whoosh! Whoosh! A large array appeared around Lu Ming. Sword chi whistled and thunder rumbled. Endless sword chi bombarded Ji Mai. It was a top-class 6 array, sword roar thunder array. Many people were shocked. They didn't expect Lu Ming to be able to inscribe a top-class 6 array in 10 breaths of time. Break for me! Ji Mai shouted and waved his hands. The inscriptions on his body glowed and emitted a terrifying aura. The sword light collided with the sword roar thunder array. At the same time, Lu Ming continued to inscribe an array. Although the sword roar thunder array was strong, it couldn't resist Ji Mai. Soon, the array was broken by Ji Mai. However, in the next moment, Lu Ming's other array appeared. Countless lush vines wrapped around Ji Mai. Another top-class 6 array. Ji Mai's sword light flashed, and endless sword chi slashed at the vines. However, the vines were too tough and couldn't be cut in half. By the time Ji Mai broke through this array, Lu Ming had finished inscribing the other 2 top-class 6 arrays and was waiting for him. Too fast. Tianyun's inscribing speed is too fast. That's right. His use of spiritual fire isn't as simple as the early heart transcendence stage. It feels even more terrifying than the middle heart transcendence stage. It can't be. Could it be that he's already reached the late heart transcendence stage? That's a realm that only top-class 7 inscriptionists can reach. Chapter 892. 10,000 Golden Light Kill. Ji Mai roared as the inscriptions on his body shone even brighter. Even his eyes were filled with sword chi. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, his entire being seemed to have transformed into a killing formation. Endless sword light burst out from his body as if every inch of his skin could burst out with sword light. He was like a moving 7th grade formation, crushing towards Lu Ming. Boom! Boom! A terrifying explosion sounded as the 2 6th grade formations that Lu Ming had laid down were destroyed by Ji Mai in an instant. Lu Ming retreated quickly, his hands and feet not stopping at all as inscriptions continued to spread out. Wang! Another 6th grade formation appeared, but Ji Mai strode forward, destroying everything in his path. His sword chi was incomparably powerful. At this moment, Ji Mai's battle power was no weaker than a martial arts practitioner at the first level of Spirit Embryo Realm. The 6th grade formation was destroyed in a few breaths' time. Tianyun is going to lose. The 6th grade formation can't stop him at all. That's right. The time he took to inscribe the formations was less than the time Ji Mai took to destroy them. He's already at a disadvantage and won't be able to hold on for much longer. It's a pity that Tianyun didn't make sufficient preparations before participating in the competition. Didn't you notice? He didn't prepare any puppets or inscription scrolls. That's true. If he had made sufficient preparations, he might have been able to fight. The others, such as the puppet faction, would have prepared many puppets before participating in the competition. The talisman faction would also inscribe many inscription scrolls, but Lu Ming didn't seem to have any. Lu Ming was indeed unprepared. He did have a few inscription scrolls, but the most powerful one was only at the 6th grade and 9th grade, so it wasn't very useful. Bam! Ji Mai destroyed yet another grade 6 grand formation. Tianyun, admit defeat. You're not my match. Ji Mai's voice rang out. Is that so? That's exactly what I wanted to say. At this moment, Lu Ming smiled faintly and suddenly stopped inscribing inscriptions. Many people in the surroundings were stunned. They didn't understand why Lu Ming suddenly stopped. From his words, it seemed that he wanted to tell Ji Mai to admit defeat. What was going on? This guy. The eyes of some senior figures at the domain enlightened spirit god realm flickered successively, and they seemed to have discerned something and were extremely surprised. Let's see what else you have up your sleeves. Ji Mai strode forward, charging towards Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming took a light step forward. Wang. On the fighting platform, a bright light shone as a huge array appeared. Amidst the resplendent light, countless pillars of fire rushed out. Pillars of fire intertwined with each other, forming a huge cage that trapped Ji Mai within. Sword light burst forth from Ji Mai's body, slashing at the pillars of fire. Intense rumbling sounds could be heard, but the pillars of fire remained motionless. He couldn't cut it. A 7th grade formation. Ji Mai's face paled. 7th level array formation, it's the 7th level array formation, Heavenly Flame Prison. Someone roared as he recognized the array formation. My God! When did Tianyun inscribe a 7th level array formation? He must have inscribed it when he was inscribing the 6th level array formation. Amazing, too amazing. He actually inscribed a 7th level array formation along with the 6th level array formation. He used those 6th level arrays to obstruct Ji Mai and perfected the 7th level array formation step by step. It's too terrifying. Many people in the surroundings roared and were extremely shocked. It was already an extraordinary feat for a 6th level inscriber to be able to inscribe a 7th level array formation. However, Lu Ming had done it in the middle of a battle. He'd completed it step by step in a battle against a formidable opponent like Ji Mai in an extremely short amount of time. It was extremely shocking. This was the complete 7th level array formation, Heavenly Flame Prison. However, Ji Mai's array formation wasn't complete, so it was difficult for him to bring forth its full might. It was utterly impossible for him to break Lu Ming's array formation. What do you think, Ji Mai? Lu Ming stood outside the array formation as his voice sounded out. The light around Ji Mai's body dimmed as he let out a long sigh. I admit defeat. He knew that Lu Ming had shown him mercy. If Lu Ming had inscribed a 7th level killing array, he would have been defeated. The Heavenly Flame Prison was merely a trapping array to trap him. Thank you for letting me win. Lu Ming clasped his fists. Then, with a wave of his hand, the inscription disappeared and the fire pillar disappeared. Tianyun wins this battle. Meng Chong announced. Following Meng Chong's announcement, the square was in an uproar. Obviously, this result was completely out of everyone's expectations. Before the start of the competition, no one had expected this result. High up in the air, Bai Shijin stood up from his seat and pressed his hands in the air. All the voices in the square quieted down. Now, this seat announces that the first place of this year's competition is Tianyun. Bai Shijin's voice was like a hurricane, spreading throughout the square. Tianyun, Tianyun. In a certain area, a group of beautiful women were screaming loudly, their faces flushed with excitement. Also, Tianyun is a candidate for Zongzi. Do you have any objections? Bai Shijin's voice was heard again. The square suddenly fell silent as all eyes gathered on Lu Ming again. Their eyes were a little complicated. Tianyun was such a genius, what objections could they have? This time, he had used his strength to prove himself. Not only was he a genius in martial arts, but even his inscription Dao was so terrifying. How many people in the world could be like him? Tianyun Zongzi. Suddenly, a loud shout resounded throughout the square. It was Bai Qi Shui. She raised her hand and shouted. Tianyun Zongzi. Tianyun Zongzi. In a certain area, a group of women screamed loudly. This time, the shouts were getting louder and louder, and gradually, the others, be it some young male disciples, some female disciples, or even some of the older generation, all began shouting Tianyun Zongzi's name loudly. Among the crowd, Rising Sun, Feng Tai, and the others had a complicated look. Before the competition, they were prepared to humiliate Lu Ming ruthlessly in the competition to get revenge for being beaten up by Lu Ming. However, what happened in the end? In the first 3 rounds of the competition, not only did they fail to humiliate Lu Ming, but they were also humiliated by Lu Ming. In the end, the halo around Lu Ming became even brighter and more dazzling. Compared to him, they were like fireflies. There was no way they could compete with him. Tianyun Zongzi. They smiled wryly and shouted along with the crowd in the end. Lu Ming looked around. At this moment, his eyes and heart were calm. He was well aware of his goal. Currently, he had only obtained the initial approval of the Talisman Puppet sect. However, it was only the initial stage. He still had a long way to go if he wanted to earn their support. Especially the elders in the sky. His goal was to win the Battle of Luck. Coming first in the Battle of Luck was his goal. Chapter 893. In the sky, Bai Shijin's lips curled into a smile. This guy seems to think highly of Lu Ming. On the side, Du Songjue's eyes flashed. He knew that Bai Shijin was building momentum for Lu Ming, but he did not refute or stop him. All right. At this moment, Bai Shijin's voice was heard again, and the scene quieted down. Now, I announce the results of this competition. First place, Tianyun. Second place, Ji Mai. Third place, Yan Tonghua. Bai Shijin announced, but then his tone changed and he said, originally, we planned to let 3 people enter the observatory this time, but because there are many geniuses this time and the quality is very high, and the Battle of Providence is near, the elders and I have decided to increase the number to 5. Other than Tianyun, Ji Mai, and Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia and Hu Ming can also enter the sky observation platform. Alright, the competition is now over. You all can rest for a while and enter the sky observation platform tomorrow. As soon as Bai Shijin's voice fell, the competition ended. Meng Jia and Hu Ming were naturally overjoyed. The others also looked at them enviously. Tianyun, I didn't know you were so powerful. Bai Qi Shui looked at Lu Ming curiously. Let's go. Lu Ming pulled Bai Qi Shui's little hand and flew in the direction of Cloud Peak residence. Because in one direction, a large group of young women was flocking towards Lu Ming. That momentum made Lu Ming run away. After flying for tens of thousands of miles, the two slowed down. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt that his hand was holding a soft and cold little hand. He turned his head and saw Bai Qi Shui looking at him with big eyes and a blush on her smiling face. Lu Ming hurriedly let go and said, sorry, I was in a hurry just now. In a hurry, or taking advantage of me? Bai Qi Shui smiled. Lu Ming was embarrassed and coughed a few times. Why are you running so fast? Isn't it great to have so many beauties chasing after you? You must be secretly pleased with yourself, right? Bai Qi Snow teased. No, I already have someone in my heart. Lu Ming smiled. Xian Yanqing's figure flashed in his mind. He wondered how she was doing. She should have returned to the Central Continent ancient sage dynasty. Oh. Is that so? Hearing Lu Ming say that he already had someone in his heart, Bai Qi's snowy face slightly stiffened. A sliver of disappointment and sadness faintly appeared in her eyes, but it only lasted for a moment before a smile once again appeared on her face. She must be very beautiful to be able to catch your eye, right? Yes, very beautiful. Lu Ming said with a smile. Then, he looked at Bai Qi Shui with a smile and teased, what? Don't tell me you've fallen for me? Go away, don't flatter yourself. Bai Qi Shui's face instantly turned red. Then, she glared at Lu Ming and said, you want me to fall for you? You're still far from it. If you're a genius like Lu Ming, then that's more likely. Cough cough cough. Lu Ming could not stop coughing. What's wrong with you? Bai Qi Shui asked. My throat is uncomfortable, nothing. Lu Ming spouted nonsense. No way, your martial Dao is so strong, how can your throat be uncomfortable? Bai Qi Shui was surprised. It's nothing, let's go back to Cloud Peak residence first. Lu Ming changed the topic and walked towards Cloud Peak residence. The next day, Lu Ming came to the top of a mountain. There was a huge altar at the top of the mountain. Ji Mai, Yan Tonghua, Meng Jia, and Hu Ming were with him. In addition, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and a few other founding elders were also there. Now, we'll open the passage to the observatory. You guys can go and cultivate, but you only have a month. After a month, you'll be teleported back. So, during this month, you have to make the best use of your time to cultivate. Bai Shijin warned. Yes. Lu Ming and the others nodded. They knew in their hearts that to open the passage to the observatory and maintain it for a month, it would consume a lot of origin stones. Moreover, the more people entered, the more resources would be consumed. Therefore, the quota to enter the observatory was extremely precious. Before this, only 13 Zongzi candidates of this generation of youths had entered the Zongzi realm. In the past, only 3 people in each generation could enter because the consumption was too great. Now that it was the War of Fortune, and this generation was the Golden Age, more people were allowed to enter. Then, Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the 3 founding elders, a total of 5 people, surrounded the huge altar and began to inscribe inscriptions. Countless origin stones flew out of their hands and were devoured by the altar. Buzz! Moments later, the altar shone brightly as inscriptions intertwined. A huge vortex suddenly appeared above the altar. The passage is open, quickly enter. Bai Shijin shouted. Lu Ming's group of 5 did not dare to delay. They stepped onto the altar and rushed into the vortex. Of course, Dandan did not follow. Lu Ming threw him into the Cloud Peak residence. The world spun, and in the next moment, Lu Ming found himself standing on a platform. The platform floated in the air, about 2 meters wide. Lu Ming looked around and realized that he seemed to be in the middle of the universe. There was a boundless starry sky in all directions, and below him was also a vast starry sky. There was only one platform floating in the air. On the left and right sides, Lu Ming saw 2 platforms. Ji Mai, Meng Jia, and the other 3 were on one platform, looking around in amazement. In front of them was a vast river that seemed to cross the entire starry sky, stretching from one end of the universe to the other. This is the law of inscription. Lu Ming was shocked. This was not the first time he had seen the law of inscription. In the past, he had only seen it in a meditative state through the spiritual force cultivation method. But now, it seemed like he was very close to the law of inscription. With a single thought, he could feel the vast inscription energy in front of him. Lu Ming's spiritual force fire throbbed violently. Sky observation platform, as expected of the sky observation platform. He could actually observe the law of inscription at such a close distance. At such a close distance, how fast would he be able to absorb the inscription energy? At this time, Ji Mai's group of 4 was already sitting cross-legged, circulating their spiritual force cultivation method to absorb the inscription energy. Rich inscription energy continuously poured into Ji Mai's group, turning into 4 pillars of light that enveloped them. Such rich inscription energy! Lu Ming exclaimed. Without further delay, he also sat down cross-legged and circulated the underworld god observation method. Buzz! In an instant, he felt a connection with the law of inscription. A resplendent pillar of light descended from the law of inscription, enveloping Lu Ming within. Ji Mai, Meng Jia, and the other 3 opened their eyes, looking at Lu Ming in shock. They realized that the light pillar formed by Lu Ming's inscription energy was more than 10 times stronger than theirs. What kind of cultivation method is he practicing? Why is it so terrifying? The 4 were astounded. The spiritual force cultivation method they practiced was already the best in the Talisman Puppet sect, but Lu Ming's cultivation method seemed to be even more shocking than theirs. Chapter 894. Lu Ming had no other distractions. He focused on activating the underworld god visualization. He could feel that there was a constant influx of rich inscription power above his head, transforming into mental fire. The mental fire in his sea of consciousness was constantly strengthening. Lu Ming had already ignited 5 blue spirit lamps, and the 5th one had already reached its peak. The flames were intense. Now, not long after, Lu Ming's spiritual fire was growing stronger and stronger. Then, the 6th spiritual lamp emitted a small blue flame. The 6th blue spiritual lamp was lit. Cultivating on the observation platform was too fast. It only took a few hours, which was comparable to half a month of cultivation for Lu Ming. Cultivation continued. Lu Ming could feel that his spiritual fire was growing stronger. Time passed day by day, and the 5 of them were immersed in cultivation. Not only them, but all the young geniuses and sky prides in the entire eastern wilderness and even the entire divine wilderness continent were immersed in cultivation. The battle of Providence was approaching, and everyone was doing their best to improve their strength. As for the various major forces, they had also opened up a lot of resources. Everyone was improving rapidly. Especially the sky prides who were ranked at the top, their improvement was even more shocking. The strong were getting stronger. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Lu Ming opened his eyes and ended his cultivation. The other 4 also stopped cultivating and opened their eyes. Everyone's eyes were filled with joy and satisfaction. Obviously, they had all made great progress in the past month. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he found that 9 blue spiritual lamps were burning fiercely in his sea of consciousness. His spiritual power was surging and exuberant. In a month, a total of 4 spiritual lamps had been lit, which was really shocking. One had to know that it was very difficult to light up after 6 lamps for each level. He wondered what Jimai and the others had achieved, but he guessed that they must have gained a lot. At this moment, a strong tearing force pulled the 5 of them. In an instant, the 5 of them disappeared, and the platform they were sitting on disappeared without a trace. Buzz! With a flash of light, he found himself back on the altar. Bai Shijin and the others were standing around him. All right, it's been a month. I'm sure you've all gained a lot. Go back and digest it. Bai Shijin said with a smile. Subsequently, Lu Ming and the others bid their farewells to Bai Shijin's group and returned to their respective homes. Lu Ming returned to Cloud Peak residence and discovered that in the courtyard, Bai Chi Snow was inscribing inscription symbols. After a while, Bai Chi finished carving and found Lu Ming. How is it? You must have gained a lot from your trip to the Sky Observatory. Bai Chi Snow revealed a hint of envy. Which disciple of the Talisman Puppet sect wasn't envious of being able to enter the Sky Observation platform? It's all right. Do you have any questions about your cultivation during this period? Lu Ming said. Yes, Master has been very busy recently and has no time to guide me. I can only rely on you. Bai Chi Snow giggled and immediately voiced out some of her doubts. Lu Ming muttered to himself for a moment before explaining his understanding. The 2 of them began to discuss. A few hours later, Lu Ming returned to his room and began to think about the direction of his cultivation. There were only 3 months left before the Battle of Providence. Right now, his path of inscription and refinement had already reached a sufficiently high level. It was very difficult for him to improve greatly within a short period of time. In the remaining time, Lu Ming had to spend all his efforts on martial arts. I need to find a place with many demonic beasts. I can hunt them and devour their blood essence to improve my bloodline. I can also borrow the power of the demonic beasts to temper my intent realm and comprehend martial arts techniques. Lu Ming pondered. Then, he took out a portion of demonic beast blood essence and began to devour and refine it. The last time he bought a batch of blood essence, he had not refined it yet. This time, he used all of it to improve the 9 dragons' bloodline. After the 9 dragons' bloodline awakened the 9 dragon claws, the amount of blood essence required was shockingly high. After refining 50 portions of level 6 7th tier demonic beast blood essence and 50 portions of level 6 8th tier demonic beast blood essence, the 9 dragons' bloodline only improved by 1 level to level 2 of the divine level. After the 9 dragons' bloodline leveled up, another dragon force was born in his bloodline. There were a total of 2 dragon forces. At this time, 3 days had passed. 3 days later, Lu Ming walked out of his room and asked Bai Qi Shui if there was a suitable place to cultivate. Bai Qi Shui pondered for a moment and indeed thought of a suitable place. The ferocious beast secret realm. This was a secret realm controlled by the Talisman Puppet sect. It was considered a mid-sized realm. There were primeval forests everywhere, nurturing countless demonic beasts. These demonic beasts were very primitive. They might not have come into contact with humans, so they could not speak human language and could not transform into human form. They retained their most primitive beast form. This was undoubtedly very suitable for Lu Ming to cultivate. Lu Ming bade farewell to Bai Qi Shui and headed for the entrance of the ferocious beast's secret realm. There were many people at the entrance. Many disciples of the Talisman Puppet sect and even the older generation entered to hunt demonic beasts. After all, an inscription master required various materials. In the ferocious beast's secret realm, not only could one obtain materials from killing demonic beasts, one could also obtain blood essence. Tianyun, it's Tianyun Zongzi. Tianyun Zongzi. When Lu Ming arrived, many people hurriedly greeted Lu Ming. Lu Ming smiled and nodded. With Lu Ming's identity, it was natural for him to enter the ferocious beast's secret realm. What came into view was an endless mountain range and an endless forest. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard from afar. It was a wild scene. This is a good place. It's very primitive. It should be a secret realm that has just been developed. I can smell the fragrance of countless spiritual herbs. Dandan stood on Lu Ming's shoulder. Her breasts were contracting and her small eyes were shining. In the surroundings, people flew forward continuously, disappearing into the desolate mountain. Let's go. Lu Ming stepped into the air and flew towards the wild mountains. Lu Ming did not stop and continued to fly deeper. According to Bai Qi Shui's introduction, the ferocious beast mystic realm was indeed a mystic realm that the Talisman Puppet sect had discovered not long ago. It had not been 10 years and there was limited development. The deeper he went, the stronger the strength of the demonic beasts. There were even many existences above the spiritual embryo realm. Soon, Lu Ming was 1,000,000 miles deep. He could already see the figures of others here. Roar! A giant lizard that was 7 to 8 meters tall and more than 30 meters long rushed out from the forest and pounced towards Lu Ming. A ferocious aura spread and emitted a powerful aura. Peak 9th level spiritual sea realm. Lu Ming smiled and condensed a long spear in his hand. With a swing, the long spear shot out with 4 types of realm of heaven and earth surrounding it. Puchi. The long spear directly pierced through the head of the giant lizard, leaving a bowl-sized bloody hole. The giant lizard roared and its huge body smashed heavily into the forest, crushing a large area of ancient trees. Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline appeared and opened its mouth, aiming at the giant lizard. A terrifying devouring force erupted. Chapter 895. Under the devouring of the 9 dragons' bloodline, the giant lizard's corpse shriveled at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a few breaths, the giant lizard turned into a dried skeleton. All of its blood essence, demonic energy, and life essence were devoured and robbed by the 9 dragons' bloodline. Lu Ming felt that there were various kinds of energy in the 9 dragons' bloodline. How could this be? It actually devoured all of the energy of a giant lizard. This is too overbearing. Could it be because of the complete awakening of the 9 dragons' bloodline? Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Since his 9 dragons' bloodline was promoted to the divine grade and transformed into the 9 claws form, this was the first time he devoured a demonic beast's corpse. Previously, he only bought blood essence and devoured it. Previously, he only felt that the devouring power of the 9 dragons' bloodline had greatly increased, but he did not expect it to be so overbearing. Lu Ming, it seems that you have fully displayed the 9 dragons' talent. Dandan said. The 9 dragons' talent? Lu Ming was puzzled. Yes, the 9 dragons' strongest talent is to devour everything. All kinds of energy will be devoured and turned into one's own. It is extremely terrifying. Dandan explained. Devour everything and turn it into one's own. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Immediately, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and began to refine the bloodline. All kinds of energy in the 9 dragons' bloodline began to be refined by Lu Ming. Among them, the blood essence was still turned into bloodline power and absorbed by the 9 dragons' bloodline. The other kinds of energy such as blood essence, life essence, and demonic energy were all refined into true yuan and poured into Lu Ming's spirit sea. Immediately, Lu Ming's true yuan increased by a little. After a while, Lu Ming opened his eyes, revealing a look of pleasant surprise. This was too overbearing. The other kinds of energy were all turned into true yuan and blood essence to enhance the bloodline power. Not a single bit was wasted. In this way, wouldn't he even save on the ores when he cultivated in the future? I didn't expect the complete awakening of the 9 dragons' bloodline to have such a heaven-defying ability. Let's try hunting demonic beasts again. Lu Ming was overjoyed. His figure flickered as he began to hunt for demonic beasts. After killing several demonic beasts in a row, the result was the same. Whether it was their blood essence, demonic chi, or life essence, they were all devoured by the 9 dragons' bloodline and turned into his own energy. Amazing. If I wasn't trapped by the concept of heaven and earth, my cultivation would simply advance by leaps and bounds. Lu Ming pondered for a moment before continuing onward, searching for powerful demonic beasts to hunt. Not long after, they went a few 100,000 miles deeper. Roar. With a loud roar, space trembled as a giant staff smashed toward Lu Ming. No, it wasn't a giant stick. It was the trunk of a giant elephant. This mammoth was as big as a mountain and covered in fur. When it swung its trunk, space trembled, causing Lu Ming to feel immense pressure. Level 7 Demon Beast. This was a 7th grade demonic beast that was equivalent to the spirit embryo realm. Roar. The sound of a dragon's roar could be heard and Lu Ming instantly unleashed a surge of dragon power. Dense scales appeared on Lu Ming's skin. Boom. With a punch, he circulated the suppressing hell-heaven skill. When the fist and the mammoth's trunk collided, an earth-shattering boom erupted. Lu Ming felt an extremely powerful force surging toward him as his body involuntarily flew backward. However, the mammoth's trunk was also sent flying by him. The mammoth's roar was earth-shattering. Level 1 of Level 7. It's equivalent to Level 1 of Spirit Embryo Realm. I can fight it. Lu Ming stopped in midair as his eyes shone brightly. This mammoth had immense strength, but it wasn't ridiculously strong. Lu Ming could fight it. Swoosh. Lu Ming executed the 9 dragons' heaven trampling steps and rushed toward the mammoth like a stream of light. The mammoth roared and swung its trunk at an astonishing speed, whipping toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body shifted as he continuously changed his position in midair. He successfully dodged the mammoth's attack and appeared on top of its head, stomping down on it. Bam! With this stomp, Lu Ming unleashed all his strength and the suppressing hell-heaven skill to the extreme. It was equivalent to an upper-grade half-god martial technique. With Lu Ming's stomp, it landed on the mammoth's head. Boom! With a violent roar, the mammoth's head caved in, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking. Roar! The mammoth wailed and whipped its trunk wildly at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body moved and flew up into the sky. What a strong defense. Lu Ming exhaled deeply with a grave look in his eyes. This mammoth's defense was terrifyingly strong. Under his all-out attack, a 10,000-meter-tall mountain would crumble in an instant. It could sink the ground within a 100-mile radius. However, when it landed on the mammoth's head, it didn't instantly kill it. The mammoth roared and its eyes were bloodthirsty as it charged toward Lu Ming crazily. As it stepped on the ground cracked and countless ancient trees collapsed. It was a scene of doomsday. Whoosh, the mammoth swung its trunk and a gale swept up. A huge gully appeared on the ground as if a valley had appeared out of nowhere. Lu Ming took a step and dodged the mammoth's trunk before rushing toward its head. This mammoth had boundless strength and astonishing defense. However, its weakness was that it was relatively slow. However, its speed was slow compared to Lu Ming. If it was any other person in the spiritual ocean realm, they would have been smashed into pieces by the mammoth's trunk. Lu Ming appeared on the mammoth's head and stepped out once again. The moment he stepped out, a dragon's roar rang out as Lu Ming exploded with another burst of dragon force. With the two bursts of dragon force in his body exploding, Lu Ming's attack power reached an astonishing level. Bam! This time, the mammoth's head exploded and a huge hole appeared. The mammoth wailed and fell to the ground. Not long after, it stopped breathing. A mammoth that was equivalent to the first level of spirit embryo realm was killed by Lu Ming. Whoosh! Lu Ming let out a breath and felt that there was only half of his vital essence left in his body. He revealed a bitter smile. Hell-suppressing heaven skill, when used at full power, exhausted a terrifying amount of vital essence. Just 2 strikes and half of the vital essence in his body had been extracted. My battle power on the martial path isn't any weaker than a martial arts practitioner at the first level of spirit embryo realm. Of course, that's only compared to normal martial arts practitioners. Lu Ming pondered in his heart. The reason why he was able to kill the giant elephant in 2 moves was mainly because the speed of the concrete elephant was relatively slow. That was why he was able to hit its vital points twice in a row. If it had been someone else with faster speed, it would not have been so easy to kill it. Lu Ming was very clear about this point. Devour. Lu Ming controlled the 9 dragons' bloodline and the power of devouring burst out, enveloping the mammoth. The mammoth's body that was as big as a mountain started to shrivel rapidly. What astonishing energy, find a place to refine it. After devouring the mammoth's energy, Lu Ming's figure flashed and found a cave. He laid down a formation and started to refine it. Whoosh whoosh, billowing energy continuously poured into Lu Ming's body. The vital essence that he had expended was quickly recovered, but the energy was still pouring in continuously. It's too dense. I'm stuck at the concept and my cultivation can't break through. What should I do? Chapter 896. Physical body, yes, let's try my physical body. Suddenly, Lu Ming had an idea. His physical body had been stuck at the peak of grade 7 for a long time, and he had been neglecting his cultivation. Now was a good time to try and see if the energy could improve his physical body. Whoosh whoosh, Lu Ming activated the myriad spirit battle body. Suddenly, the energy seemed to have found a vent and seeped into his physical body. Lu Ming's physical body began to wriggle and expand, and his bones made cracking sounds. Lu Ming could clearly feel that his physical body was becoming stronger and stronger at a rapid pace. It was beginning to improve. Half an hour later, the energy of the giant elephant was completely refined. Grade 8 physical body. Lu Ming smiled. As expected, the energy he devoured could also improve his physical body. How much should he save in the future? In the future, he could use the resources to buy other things, such as spiritual liquid and cultivating the tree of enlightenment. Lu Ming was about to laugh out loud. Legend has it that one of the basic conditions to break through to the martial emperor realm is to have a body at the peak of grade 9. Lu Ming had an idea. Many spiritual god realm experts would try their best to cultivate their physical body because it was impossible to break through to the martial emperor realm without a body at the peak of grade 9. Of course, Lu Ming was still far away from that. Now was not the time to think about it. It was enough to improve his physical body. The 9 dragons' bloodline did not improve. After refining the blood essence of the giant elephant, the 9 dragons' bloodline did not improve. It was the blood essence of a grade 7 demonic beast. Now, Lu Ming needed a huge amount of blood essence to improve his bloodline. If he were to buy it, he would not be able to afford it. Then, Lu Ming waved his hand and the Tree of Enlightenment appeared. Lu Ming sat in front of the Tree of Enlightenment and began to comprehend the realm of heaven and earth. Just like that, Lu Ming began his days of hard cultivation in the ferocious beast forest. Once he had an inspiration, he would stop cultivating. After a few days of cultivation, he would go hunting demonic beasts to hone his martial skills. The Dandan would wander around the mountains in search of spiritual herbs. Time flew by in a blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, it had already been 2 months and 20 days since Lu Ming entered the vicious beast's secret realm. There were only 10 days left before the Battle of Providence. Crash! A figure flew out of a clear lake and stood on the shore. Then, he sent out his quintessence, and not a single drop of water remained on his body. Then, he changed into a blue close-fitting robe. Suddenly, an elegant and graceful young master appeared on the shore. This person was, of course, Lu Ming, who had been cultivating in the ferocious beast's secret realm for nearly 3 months. Now, Lu Ming was already 22 years old. His face was chiseled, and he was much more mature than before. He looked even more determined. It's time to go out. The Battle of Providence is finally coming. Lu Ming clenched his fists and felt the surging energy in his body. His eyes revealed a trace of anticipation. Dandan landed on Lu Ming's shoulder. Its mouth was filled with the fragrance of herbs. It said, "Haha, this seat has recovered a little. When this seat recovers a little more, watch how I'll torture those so-called outstanding talents. Also, that martial Monarch DE will be blown to death by this seat." Dandan even burped as it spoke. During this period of time, this fellow had found many high-grade spiritual herbs. He had been eating spiritual herbs every day and had been living a very comfortable life. Whoosh! Then, Lu Ming turned into a beam of light and headed for the exit of the ferocious beast forest. When Lu Ming came out of the ferocious beast forest, his expression changed. He took out a voice transmission jade talisman. "Fatty is here. I nearly forgot." Lu Ming smiled. The moment he came out, he received a message from Fatty. It looked like he was blocked in the secret realm earlier. Immediately, Lu Ming flew out of the Yin and Yang mountain. At the edge of the Yin and Yang mountain, there was a huge array platform. This place was guarded by the experts of the Yin and Yang mountain, who kept the array running smoothly at all times. Seniors. Lu Ming clasped his fists. "Oh, it's Tianyun Zongzi. Are you going out?" An old man opened his eyes and said, "I have a few friends who are participating in the Battle of Providence. I want to bring them in." Lu Ming arrived. "All right, take this token with you. You can freely enter and exit the Great Formation of the Two Elements Mountain. However, this token has restrictions. At most, you can bring in strong practitioners of the spirit embryo realm. Stronger practitioners will be blocked." A token flew out of the old man's hand and Lu Ming caught it. "Thank you, senior." Lu Ming thanked him and stepped out. When he walked out of the Yin Yang mountain, there was suddenly a layer of ripples in the space that was originally normal. Lu Ming took a step forward and stepped out. He flew forward and came to a small city thousands of miles away. He saw Fatty and of course, Wan Tingting. "Lu Ming, I finally see you. We arrived 5 days ago and have been sending you messages, but there was no news." Fatty laughed when he saw Lu Ming. He wanted to give Lu Ming a bear hug, but he was almost kicked out by Lu Ming. "Lu Ming." Wan Tingting walked over and greeted him with a smile. "Tingting." Lu Ming nodded with a smile. He realized that both Fatty and Wan Tingting's auras were much stronger than before. They were much stronger than they were half a year ago. This was especially so for the Fatty. Lu Ming could sense a terrifying aura from him. This aura was hidden in the depths of the Fatty's body. Lu Ming could also sense a trace of it with his sensitive spiritual senses. This aura seemed to be able to destroy everything and was extremely sharp. It seemed that both Fatty and Wantingting had made great progress under the guidance of the demonic Sky Divine Emperor. After all, they were taught by the Divine Emperor himself. How many people in the world could do that? Fatty, you've awakened your third bloodline? Lu Ming asked. Yes, I've awakened it. Hee hee, Lu Ming, I'm not afraid of you now. Fatty grinned. Oh. What level is it? Lu Ming asked. It's a secret now. When the Battle of Providence starts, I promise you'll be shocked. Fatty chuckled with a mysterious look. Go away. Wantingting said with disdain. Lu Ming also pointed his middle finger at Fatty. Tingting, you've also awakened a divine bloodline, right? Lu Ming looked at Wantingting. He could also feel a powerful aura from Wantingting's body. Yes, I was lucky enough to awaken it with the help of Senior Demonic Sky. Third level divine bloodline. Wantingting said, and then a trace of aura flashed from her body. Seventh level of the spiritual sea realm. Wantingting's cultivation had actually reached the seventh level of the spiritual sea realm. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. The demonic Sky Divine Emperor's methods were indeed unpredictable. In just half a year, not only did Wantingting successfully awaken a third-level divine bloodline, but her cultivation also broke through to the seventh level of the spiritual sea realm. Half a year ago, Wantingting's cultivation was only at the third level of the spiritual sea realm. The speed of her progress could be said to be extremely shocking. This was the method of the Divine Emperor. It was difficult to predict. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.